Welcome back to the best division in football with your boys Awthentik and The Beard. Shout out to the gang early in the chat one time. Y'all know what it is, man. This is victory week for the New York Giants. Victory Monday was amazing. Now, for those Commanders, this treacherous Tuesday not looking as good for them right now. A lot of problems here in Washington for the Commanders here. Man, so the New York Giants end up beating them 14-7. We're going to go over that one. We briefly going to go over the Miami Dolphins versus the Philadelphia Eagles. That one was, what was the score of that game? That was 31-17. Not as close as I thought that one would be, but we definitely want to break down some stuff with that one as well. A couple little numbers I want to throw at y'all real quick. The Miami Dolphins are actually going to be on Hard Knocks in season, which is amazing. I'm really looking forward to that. Y'all know with my cinematography background, I'm definitely going to be looking forward to that. I got goals in this NFL stuff, and watching Hard Knocks is definitely inspiring. 9 of the 13 games this week were one-score victories. I thought that was really amazing. And 68.3% of all games this year have been within one score in the fourth quarter. So we've had some tight, close football going on this year. I don't really want to see that go too far into the season here. I'm looking for my New York Giants to maybe get our first blowout victory of the week. The Beard talked about that on the preview show. He thought that this could possibly be a chance where the Giants could maybe run up the scoreboard here. Didn't take advantage of some opportunities. But without further ado, let me bring in the strong side to the left side duo, the best co-host in the country. The better half of this show, but not this week, with them Washington Commanders who fall to 3-4. My brother, your brother, The Beard. What's going on, bro?
Oh, you know, just trying to tread water on this treacherous Tuesday, as you so eloquently put it, you know. But
you like that? You like that?
I don't like that. And listen, I've been really, humble in this defeat for the New York Giants, the fan base, and my co-host and best friend here, Mr. Awthentik.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But, man, I'll tell you what, Awthentik has thrown a couple of little shacks at me throughout the, since that victory. Yeah, a little one of those. Coming down the hallway like Kenny Powers in a cowboy outfit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The title to Giant Overreaction, big shout out to Awthentik and everybody who showed up for Giant Overreaction as always. But, yeah, the title for that one, very clever. And then I laughed at the title. I said, I see this title. And then, you know what, he replies back with, you like that? Like another little gut punch. Kirk Cousins, who, by the way, did some things last night.
Let's talk about it. Do you have any regret right now for not having Kirk Cousins in a Washington uniform?
I wouldn't call it regret. I will say that I probably have been too harsh and had the blinders on as far as him as a quarterback over the years. I will admit that for sure. It's interesting because he did it last night in prime time, right? Which is one of the things that has been his downfall outside of just not being able to win bigger games, right? But that was a big game, and they needed that win against a top tier opponent. No Justin Jefferson. So I thought it was.
Remember, I told you if they had Justin Jefferson, I would have picked him for the victory.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because San Francisco's defense has just the last couple of weeks has just not been all there. The offense has kind of struggled. They've missed opportunities as far as field goals and stuff like that, which kind of add up in close games, like especially the numbers that you spoke on to open the show today. So for me, it's just. It's interesting because the whole situation was just messed up here to begin with. The RG3 and Kirk Cousins coming in the same draft, and then the double franchise tag. It was a blunder that I don't think that they could have gotten out of, even if they really wanted to.
I think y'all handled that the proper way, actually. By franchise tagging Kirk Cousins twice, it's kind of what I wish the New York Giants would have done here. At least, started with one franchise tag with the quarterback, because you then allow him to prove himself. And I think, granted, if it is the right or the wrong decision to have let go of Kirk Cousins when they did at that time for Washington, at least you made the assessment and you had enough data to make that assessment. They looked at him as a guy who probably was banging on the threshold of being a elite quarterback, but not quite going to get there. And that's been the knock on Kirk Cousins, I think, his whole entire career. Not being able to win the big playoff games, not being able to win the primetime games under the bright lights is not quite as bad as a record as what we've seen with the New York Giants, but Kirk Cousins definitely has struggled under the bright lights. For me, it was good to see him, go out there and get a staple victory like that in an unexpected way. Speaking of the 49ers here, you can't forget the injuries on their offensive side of the ball definitely hurt them. No Debo, no Trent. They had the last game against the Browns where they had no CMC. So, you're not having that consistency with your playmakers out there on the offensive side of the ball. And we've seen it back-to-back games now where Brock Purdy has thrown an interception.
Yeah, so I mean, and it's tough. It definitely is tough. And I think Brandon Ayuk played very well, and obviously CMC breaks the record for consecutive games with a touchdown from scrimmage.
Oh,
I
that
think
did break the record, the
yeah,
14. That's
yeah.
what's up.
I think that Trent Williams being out was a big blow to them for sure.
Yeah, the rest of that offensive line from left guard all the way to right tackle, not all that great,
Yeah.
So they need that anchor on that end of that offensive line for sure.
But I still think, it's tough for me not to put them still up there with the Eagles. I think you're starting to see some more flaws in a lot of these top tier teams.
Yeah.
I think that's becoming more noticeable, and that's throughout the entire league, obviously. But I think you're starting to see it in San Francisco. You've seen it at periods and times for the Philadelphia Eagles, and then you saw it with the Detroit Lions. This is obviously the NFC teams I'm speaking on, but you saw it with the Detroit Lions last week. I mean, this week they actually got just mollywopped. It was like it was 21-0 before they had a first down.
This was a really interesting week. I went back and I looked at our picks from the parlay on Sunday, and we were off on a lot of picks. And I don't think we were the only people. There were so many games where it's just like this didn't go the way that we thought, the cookie would crumble in these games. And it started with that Detroit Lions game for me. I was just like, how in the hell are Lamar Jackson and the Ravens taking it to the Detroit Lions like this? A team that you haven't seen their offense sputter like that.
No.
Maybe since the beginning of last season.
And it wasn't like they turned the ball over or like all those sort of things where it's just like everything's kind of going wrong. Like they just could not move the ball down the field. I think David Montgomery, I think you really see the value in David Montgomery when you watch a game like that. Nothing against Jahmyr Gibbs, who, finally scored a touchdown, I believe, in that game. But it's just you see the value of a running back. I think that's one thing that you have to take away from a lot of these games is the value of a running back in a running game. It really means a lot. Like, yes, this is a passing league, right? Yes, you need a quarterback to win a championship. But you cannot deny the fact that you have to have some sort of stability in the running game in order for all the other pieces to work on a great team.
Yeah, that's a fact. And I was on Kyle Pizzle's channel late last night. I know I told the people in the community I wasn't going to be going live on the stream, but by like 1:30 in the morning, I saw Kyle Pizzle was live, told him to send me the link. We ended up chopping it up. And we talked about a lot of that stuff, about how there are two types of quarterbacks in this league. And I've told you this a bunch of times on this channel as well. There's the type of quarterback who's they're elite, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes. Sometimes a guy like Joe Burrow, when you see Joe Mixon struggling, he can still overcome those deficiencies, from the running game on the offensive side of the ball. And then there are the quarterbacks who absolutely need a running game. And we talked about that back in the Taylor Heineke days, Daniel Jones being a guy who, seemed to always be mentioned in the conversation with what are the statistics with and without Saquon Barkley, and with, Tyrod Taylor going out here playing some decent football. That's been a topic of discussion on social media this whole entire week.
Yeah, and I mean, you see it especially in the first game we're going to talk about. I mean, you're going to see how the running game can affect two high-scoring, potent offenses in different ways. It's very interesting. I don't necessarily think both of those quarterbacks need a running game. I think both of those quarterbacks are tethering the line as far as elite quarterbacks go in the National Football League. I think both are.
We're talking Eagles, Dolphins.
Eagles, Dolphins.
I still can't go, and I like Tua a lot. I still don't think he's on that, knocking on that elite door.
Yeah,
I think Jalen Hurts is.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is, and obviously, going to the Super Bowl has helped him. But I just looking at the way A2 plays, B the numbers. I know he does have Tyreek Hill, best wide receiver in football. That's going to help, obviously, and he's got a great coaching staff and stuff like that. But I just there's something about him that I want. He's in my top 10. That's why I say he's kind of teetering that elite to me.
Interesting. I don't know if I have Tua in my top 10. I don't think I got him. I got Kirk Cousins above Tua right now. You saw Kirk Cousins last night go up against maybe the best defense in football without his number one wide receiver. It didn't slow him down. I saw I think it was Mike Lombardi talking about this, that you can have a quarterback who can make a great wide receiver look extremely average. We've never seen that with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I can see the argument for Kirk Cousins being a leg up on Tua. I wouldn't be mad at that. More of a
sample size for sure, because Kirk Cousins just had his 50th 300-yard game.
Yeah.
So this guy's putting up 4,000 yards every year.
But people are going to say, he's a stat patter.
Call it what you want to call it, man.
But you put up stats and you play the game.
you look at the Ravens, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, and just go look at the passing statistics for those teams. You could look at a juggernaut team like the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is not consistently putting up 4,000 yards a year.
Yeah.
Has Jalen Hurts even thrown for 4,000 yet?
No.
Lamar Jackson has not thrown for 4,000 yards either. So I don't think it's a stat padding situation. You have to be a certain type of quarterback to be able to put up 4,000 yards in this league.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how it all evolves the rest of the season, especially with the Vikings, because there was at one point where they were like, let's trade Kirk Cousins, let's tank, let's get Caleb Williams and this and that. And then next thing you know, now they're kind of in the mix for a wild card spot.
That's why I think you really got to pay attention to who you listen to, because that was a lot of the talk on social media for sure, right? A lot of people talking about tank, trade, blah, blah, blah. Me and you even had a conversation on the parlay in week 3 when the Chargers played the Minnesota Vikings, and we were like, who's going to be the best 0-2 team to come out of this? The Chargers ended up winning that game. I said it was going to be the Vikings who were going to be the better 0-2 team. You said the Chargers. I think you were right at the time. But when I'm looking at it right now and I'm looking at the way that the Chargers have struggled, I think the Minnesota Vikings maybe are in a better situation. I don't know if they're a better team because battling in the AFC is definitely going to be interesting for Justin Herbert and the Chargers.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it for sure. Because at that time, obviously the Chargers won that game, but I don't think the Chargers have won a game since that Vikings game.
No, they won a game because they were close to 500, like before they just took that.
Oh
L
yeah,
to Dallas.
they did
Yeah,
win
so they won
one
a couple
game
games
after that, and then they lost to Dallas, and they had the bye week, and then they just lost this week to Kansas City.
Yeah, so they're sitting on what
2 and 4,
2 and 4 now. Yeah, so definitely regression here. So I guess let's take it right into this Eagles Dolphins matchup real quick, and then we're gonna get to the main event, man. This I've been waiting to hear your thoughts on the Giants game for sure. I got to talk about it on the Giant Overreaction for about a good 2 to 3 hours on Monday and whatnot yesterday. And some good conversation there, man. Shout out to everybody from the chat that was in there. Shout out to the family who was, bringing their 2 cents to the table because I learned a lot from that stream. I'm going to keep it real with you, especially about our quarterback situation and just hearing different opinions. That was really good. But let's get off into this Dolphins game, man. They traveled up 95 to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, man. So this one, I believe you picked the Dolphins and I picked the Dolphins to win this game.
I picked Eagles.
Oh, you did pick the Eagles. Okay, I think you picked the Dolphins to cover them, maybe because the Eagles were favored in this one, right?
Yeah.
Good stuff. So that gives you another little leg up. You winning in something. I saw your fantasy record. You still winless in our fantasy league. You got to find a way to fix that immediately. So talked about the Dolphins, man. Make sure y'all check them out. They're going to be on Hard Knocks in season. That should be really interesting here. The Philadelphia Eagles end up winning this game 31-17. It was 17-10 at the half, and I felt like the Eagles were really in control throughout most of this game with the Miami Dolphins fighting and trying to claw back. You saw Jalen Hurts came out in the second half with a knee brace on. A lot of people were questioning, what kind of injury that might be. Philly came out and dominated this game, man, in a bunch of categories here. They dominated. They doubled up on the first downs there. They had 26 first downs to the Miami Dolphins 12. They were 4 for 4 on fourth down, and we know a lot of that goes with that tush push. Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles, they run that to a T. They even had one of them where they called a offsides, which is really rare to see an offsides penalty on the offense. But what they didn't see is that hand that was across the ball was the center's hand across the ball, which is actually legal in the NFL. Philadelphia Eagles also dominated in total plays. They ran 20 more total plays than the Miami Dolphins, and that's kind of rare for the Miami Dolphins, or a team that, kind of like methodically works their way down the field because a lot of people are playing too high safety on them, so they're not really getting too many of those deep shots. It's more intermediate ball for them. Total yards was also dominated by the Philadelphia Eagles, 355 to 244. Tua was sacked 4 times in this game. Jalen Hurts was sacked 3 times in this one. And the Philadelphia Eagles won the time of possession, 36 minutes and 43 seconds to 23-17. So that's how you got to beat a team like this. Juggernaut type of offense. You keep the quarterback on the sidelines. Both teams were not good on third down. Miami was just a little bit better on third down. They were 4 for 11 on third down. The Philadelphia Eagles were 4 for 12 on third down. I can't wait to get to this next game to talk about the third down statistics from the matchup between the Washington Commanders and the New York Giants, which was absolutely just abysmal from the Washington Commanders. But these two teams didn't fare too well in this one. Jalen Hurts, what I like about Jalen Hurts is he can just win these kind of games where things don't look like they're quite going his way throughout, right? You get the interception in this one a little bit midway through the game, a little early and whatnot. And he finds a way to battle back. He ended the day 23 of 31 for 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Now, seeing Brock Purdy play, what was that? That was last night, right? his game was good. At one point I looked up, and right before he threw his second interception, he had only had 7 passes that hit the ground. His numbers were very similar to this Jalen Hurts stat line. He was like 23 of 30, something like that. But when you end up throwing that second interception, sometimes that can be the difference between a good game and getting your team a win and a bad game and walking away, not being the victor in the situation. Tua was 23 of 32 for 216 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The running game never really quite got going for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, I believe, only had 21 yards in this game on the ground. And DeAndre Swift, they committed to it. He had 15 attempts, but he only had 62 yards. Now, before I kick this one to you, I just wanted to talk about the matchup that I brought up when we did the preview show earlier the past week and whatnot. And I talked about the matchup between Tyreek Hill versus A.J. Brown. These guys both pushing records as far as the amount of games over 125 yards. A.J. Brown had the most of those games since I believe it was 2019. And Tyreek Hill was pushing for a record for the most of those type of games in the beginning of a season. Now, I did say this. I said A.J. Brown, he's an angry man, right? He's the kind of guy that if your quarterback is not stable mentally, he's not going to be able to play with a guy like A.J. Brown. I remember people making a big deal about DeAndre Hopkins coming off the sideline screaming at Kyler Murray one time, like, bro, what is you seeing out there? I'm open. Get me the ball. And A.J. Brown is that kind of wide receiver. He had 10 receptions for 137 yards. We talked about the parlay, top 3 wide receivers as we did on Sunday. And I think there's something we've been missing out on just about every week on the parlay, right? Outside of not coming back to the numbers to see who, was the ranking, right? We've been leaving Travis Kelce off that list.
Because we're just ignoring him as a wide receiver because he's a tight end. But yeah,
he's a tight end.
Yeah, he
and
should.
Now that's 2 weeks that he's led.
Yeah,
And
listen, both of those games, I'm just gonna throw it out there. I know you don't want to hear it, but both of those games were at home, and Taylor Swift was in the audience.
They broke down the numbers with Taylor Swift in the building. He was averaging 99 yards a game. It almost got cut in like half when she wasn't there. So I get it. Look, listen, man, when I was a youngin', right, if we was out hot summer day at the basketball courts, couple ladies at the basketball court, Awthentik going to step that game up a little bit. I might do an extra little crossover, maybe a little fadeaway, I'm feeling a little swaggy. So I get it. You got the lady in the building. You want to ball out. But Tyreek Hill, he had more receptions, but he had less yards. They both had a touchdown. I knew that this was going to be a real battle of the 2 best wide receivers in the league. They were both leading the NFL in yards coming into this game. Tyreek Hill being number 1, A.J. Brown being number 2. I think A.J. Brown got the better of this matchup. 10 receptions for 137 yards. Tyreek Hill 11 for 88. And when you look at the 1B wide receivers for each team, Jalen Waddle had 6 receptions for 63 yards on the day, and Devonta Smith only had 4 receptions in this game. Dallas Goedert was the second leading wide receiver or pass catcher for the Philadelphia Eagles. He had 5 receptions for 77 yards. But lack of running game, obviously, in this one. What did you see from this matchup as far as the Miami Dolphins and the Philadelphia Eagles? I guess you got the pick right. I thought Miami's offense was going to be a little bit too much. I thought that Raheem Mostert was going to be able to come in this game and run the ball. Seems like that was the case.
I like you thought this game was definitely going to be a lot closer, though. Even though I picked the Eagles to win the game, I thought it was going to be a lot closer. And it was close for a while there. But, the Miami Dolphins just could not get the ball going on the ground. And I think that, just to double down on what we were talking about earlier on in the show, for the Dolphins, it's just that balance keeps the defense on their heels so much. So it opens up so much for them offensively when they are able to run the ball. And we've seen Raheem Mostert be able to do that, at least not even just running the ball, but the running backs catching out of the backfield. The way that Mostert has made some crazy catches and a lot of good runs after the catch as well, but they just couldn't get him going. And I was really surprised that they activated Jeff Wilson Jr. And a lot of people I feel like might have forgotten about Jeff Wilson Jr.
For sure.
Because he's had some moments as a complete dog in San Francisco. And he came off of the IR. I was expecting them to kind of use him a little bit more in the passing game. They did. He had more receptions, I think, than Mostert did in this game. But they just weren't able to really get the ground game moving, and I think it just messed up the balance of them. But kudos to Philadelphia's defense because, they played up to their potential. Mostert only had 9 carries for 45 yards, right?
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill, you mentioned 11 catches, but only 88 yards. They kind of limited that sort of big play capability to a certain extent with Tyreek Hill outside of the one big play that he had. Waddle was banged up throughout this game. He was coming on and off the field. That was another thing to kind of deal with. But I thought that Philadelphia's defense really was the story of this game outside of, and I'm glad somebody brought it up. Big shout out to our guy, Lax044 with the $4.99 super chat.
Shout out to Lax
Says the Eagles got some home cooking in this one. So many blatant no calls on the Eagles. Let me tell you, the worst of the worst was the face mask, pass interference, whatever the hell you want to call it. It was just, I mean, the ref was standing right there, albeit, you know, the play was, he was behind the play. But I mean, when you see like you gotta at least.
It wasn't. This is what I will say about it, because you know the not the pass interference, the face mask rule has been changed a little bit, right? We used to have two variations of the rule.
Yeah.
And there was like the short tug, and then there was if you held on and you grasped the face mask, they gave you a 15-yard penalty. And now they're just like going straight to the grasp one. You can only get the 15-yard penalty. I thought it was borderline. I thought it was, I do think they should have thrown the flag, like 100%, right? But it was like a quick grab of the face mask and a tug and a let go. And I think maybe that's why, because sometimes you see the referees will be late to throw the flags, and I think a lot of that has to do with the referees up in the booth being like, hey, dog, you got to throw that flag, right? I do think the NFL is doing that now. Like sometimes you see it 8 seconds later.
They do it on the other way, right? They do it on the other way, where they will reverse something or not make somebody use a challenge.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it makes kind of sense.
That wasn't one of those cases, because the referee who was in the booth, he did say they missed a call, and there were a bunch of calls all day. So that is a great point that Lax brings up. I still think that the Eagles were just more dominant. Here's where I thought the game was won. The tackling from the Philadelphia Eagles in this game. You talked about the running backs being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. Every time you saw Raheem Mostert get a little swing pass or something in the flats, they were just like pursuing him in the most aggressive way and not missing tackles, man. So, and now Philadelphia Eagles just went out there and they got Kevin Byard from the Tennessee Titans, man. So they're just upgrading. You got to love what Howie Roseman is doing over there.
Always making moves. I love it. But the discrepancy as a football fan, I love it. As an NFC East rivalry, I hate it. But listen, at this point, I can't really hate anything else that other people are doing. Because we don't do anything, and it's a long story for another episode, and
for another segment.
We'll get into it later. But yes, the discrepancy though in the penalties was pretty egregious. It was 0 penalties for 0 yards for the Philadelphia Eagles and 10 penalties for 70 yards for the Miami Dolphins.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm getting that one mistaken with the tush push. Maybe that was another team I saw where the center, they called offsides on the left guard, but it was the center's arm. So, but you are seeing 0 penalties on the box score, so that's got to be correct.
Yeah. So it's just the defense for me. The Miami's inability to find a balance in the running game, the penalties, whether they were self-inflicted or bad calls, either way, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, a penalty is still a penalty. So those are the big reasons why Miami wasn't able to come away with this victory. And I will say this: those throwback Eagles uniforms are super clean.
I like them. They feel a little muddy to me, but I do like them better than their normal uniforms. I don't really like that like smoky gray that they use. Yeah, that's or the smoky green. Yes, it's a little strange to me.
Lax says that there was a penalty on that, but there was offsetting penalties.
Got you. I thought I saw that in this game. He said, "Go figure." Yeah, but I also think this came down to quarterback play as well. The numbers don't look too terrible for Tua, but I just saw a quarterback that was a bit rattled, pressure kind of getting to him, letting go of the ball a little bit early. And I think the better quarterback, and that happens a lot in this league, whichever quarterback plays better, normally that's the team that's going to come out on top with the victory, and I think that in this case it was Jalen Hurts who played the better game.
Yeah, speaking of which, better quarterback play, huh?
Ready to go to this next game?
I'm not ready, no, but it's gonna have to happen.
No.
There's no Dallas hate buffer segment here, so
right. They was on a bye this week. Can't throw them no shade. Definitely no flowers at the front door for the Cowboys. But let's talk about these Commanders who also headed up 95 to take on the New York Giants.
Giants are on the board with 11:16 to go here in the third.
I got in both earphones today, and I normally don't do that. And this is like surround sound Beard and Awthentik right now.
I was gonna say, wild. I can only imagine what it's like to have the Beard in both ears.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I feel bad for Josie. I really do. But not too bad. My New York Giants definitely got this win 14-7. That score could have been a lot different. It was 14-0 at the half. I want to give y'all a couple little new nuggets I saw here. Tyrod Taylor is the first Giants quarterback with 275 or more yards, 2 or more passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions in a home victory since Eli Manning did it in 2015. Good God. Shout out. In that game, guess who that game was against, the Beard?
We're going to go out on a limb and say the Washington Redskins.
We were at that game. It was a little rainy. Eli went crazy in that game. I believe that's the Larry Donnell game. That stat came from the homie at WBG84, who's in my group chat. Salute to you, fan. Appreciate that. Another one I saw from Gridiron Media was Deonte Banks. Says Deonte Banks has been unreal this season. He's allowed a 48.3 completion percentage, just 4.5 yards per target, and a 69.8 passer rating. So as a rookie, Deonte Banks has came out here and played some fantastic football. He had a tough matchup against Terry McLaurin in this one. I believe Terry McLaurin was 90 yards. It was his most yards of the season so far, too. But I think that the rookie did a good job handling business against one of the more premier wide receivers in the NFL. The Giants offense finally got our first half touchdown this season, man. That was awesome to see. I was upstairs celebrating, man. First I was laying down watching this game. As soon as we got that first touchdown, I stood up. Second touchdown, I was just ecstatic. And then when this game started to get a little bit closer, I started to get a little worried. I started to do that authentic pace that I'm sure you remember when you used to live here and whatnot. But the Giants definitely got that first half touchdown. It's good to get that off our plate. The Giants have had, I talked about this on the Giant Overreaction too. I think this is a really good stat here because you gotta give some props to this offensive line, the unit that the New York Giants fielded out there in this game, because a lot of these guys just got here. Tyree Phillips just got here a couple days ago, and yeah, he spent camp with us. He ended up getting signed to the practice squad of the Philadelphia Eagles, and we brought him back. And shout out to Bobby from Talking Giants. He did an offensive line breakdown, which really brought this to light for me. Like, the offensive line had a pretty decent game. Outside of Justin Pugh, who had a PFF grade of like 19, everybody else on this offensive line played pretty well. We had 2 guys in the 80s as far as their PFF grade. And the Giants have now, they've had 15 different combinations of an offensive line in 2023. It's the worst in the NFL. Only 2 of the guys who were there day one on the offensive line are still healthy right now. So, you had Pugh out there, Tyree Phillips. Ben Bredeson at center is starting to get a little bit better at that as well, too. He struggled, his first game at the center position. He ended up getting hurt like on the 5th play of the game. He came back in the game, and he didn't have a great game. And Mark Lewinsky, man, he was one of the players on the offensive line who had a rating over 80. And, our source had told us that Mark Lewinsky was pretty much shutting it down for the year. And it's great to see him back out there. I kind of made some Geno Smith references. They wrote Mark Lewinsky off. He didn't write back. Came back out there on the field. He had a great day, and he was going up against, one of the better interior defensive linemen in the entire league. The Washington Commanders have 2 great guys in the interior of that defensive line, the 2 D tackles, Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. And I forget, who's the one that got paid?
They're both paid. They're both paid.
I thought one was on who just got paid, because they franchise tagged him and then they paid him.
Payne got paid.
Payne just got paid. So he was the one that was going up against Mark Lewinsky all day. And Bobby made a suggestion that maybe because he got paid, that's why he's kind of playing a little bit lackluster after he got the money. It was good to see the New York Giants get back to their identity, running the ball with Saquon. And since his return, he's got 52 touches for 216 yards. In this game, he had 21 carries for 77 yards. He had that big fumble, man, and that's really tough to see from a guy like Saquon, who really is not known for fumbling the ball at all. I believe he's only lost 1 fumble in his entire career. I think he has 5 fumbles in his career, but 4 of them were got back by the offense and whatnot. I just got to start this by just sending a big shout out to this defense, man. Let's run through this. I ran through this on the Giant Overreaction, but for those of y'all that weren't there, let's definitely go through these numbers from the defense one more time. Deonte Banks, 7 tackles and 1 beautiful interception over his shoulder. Leonard Williams, 2 tackles, 1 sack, blocked field goal. Bobby O, 11 tackles, 1 pass breakup. Dexter Lawrence, 2 sacks, 6 tackles. Kayvon Thibodeau, 1.5 sacks and 4 tackles. And let me pause right here. I saw the dude, Sal Licata.
I saw that too. What a jabroni.
That, right? It's a terrible take. And let me tell you what, like, I don't mind people who, like, pivot from a certain take when you get more data, right? But when you're somebody who's just pivoting from take to take to take without having any data to back it up, I do have a problem with that. Sal was one of the most, I won't even use the word critical about Daniel Jones. Sal was a Daniel Jones hater a couple years ago, right? Something changed. I don't know what happened. They came into this year, and this dude's talking about Daniel Jones he can be a dark horse MVP, can be a top 5 quarterback. The New York Giants are definitely going to the playoffs. Just, gas central, okay? Straight up Exxon, putting the battery in Daniel's back. And then with Kayvon Thibodeau, you guys come out and the other host on that show, his name's Brandon Tierney, right? He used to do the show with Tiki Barber. I don't fault him as much because I don't even think he's a New York Giants fan. I think he's a Jets fan, right? So when you don't know numbers and you don't know what's really going on with the Giants games, you're not a fan of the team, that's cool. You get the pass from me, right? But Sal, being the guy who covers the New York Giants, when you come out here and you say Kayvon Thibodeau is non-existent on the field, this dude lacks explosiveness, lacks energy, can't get after the quarterback. He's 9th in the NFL in sacks right now. He leads the New York Giants in sacks right now.
The other thing that really upsets me about that, because I saw it, right? And for me, I feel like it's almost it's eerily similar to Chase Young. Maybe that's why I kind of am very defensive of Kayvon Thibodeau also. But like he was almost attacking his character more so than he was the player on the field.
Yeah,
all
both.
because he dropped the pick 6, right? He's like, all he does is know how to dress nice and run his mouth.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that for me, like, like I take what we do serious. We have a lot of fun up here, but the work that we put in, you know what I'm saying? We put in work, we take this serious, dude. And it's like, to see people up there, and I see it all the time on Twitter, and like I see it with like other content creators, no matter what team it is, it's always, suck, trash, this. And all he wants to do, he doesn't want to be here. All he wants to do is be in commercials.
Brash. Like I take it with a bit of a grain of salt, right? Because I know how New Yorkers can be, right? Like, if you operate around the DMV or the DC area, you know how DC is, right? So like if you see somebody, what most people around the country will call roasting, right? In DC we call it joning. Like some people might take offense to some of that stuff, but if you from DC and you know DC and how we operate out here, like roasting is just all about clowning and having fun. It's like, we the kind of people out here where like let me think of a PC way to put this. So like if you a dude that's bald, they might call you dreadlocks out here, right? Like, or if you a dude that's oversized, they'll call you tiny, right? Or like if this is a real life story. I had a barber, his name was Wink. He literally had like one of his eyes was like, something was wrong with one of his eyes. He had like some accident when he was a kid. And it's no like personal shot, right? And I do take it with a grain of salt with like New Yorkers and how they are. New Yorkers are very like, it's like that loud braggadocious kind of a talk, right? And whatnot. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I think, like you said, like if you're going to be a professional and they're paying you up there to make takes and say things that fans are going to cling on to, because the narrative around Kayvon Thibodeau being a bust has been something that people have been talking about early on this year, where I think it's very different than the Chase Young thing is people were saying that when Chase Young's play started to decline. Kayvon Thibodeau is on pace to be the first player in a Wink Martindale system to have double-digit sacks right now. So, like, where are we going with this? When the numbers and the data is going against everything that Sal is saying, why do you get up there and say it? I always say this, and I learned this from music. People have the most ignorant takes when they don't know about stuff. And it's okay to be ignorant, but it's not okay to be ignorant and act like you aren't ignorant. That's the biggest problem. If you don't know something, say you don't know it. But if you're somebody who's following the team and you don't know that Kayvon Thibodeau right now is he led the New York Giants coming into this game and getting out of this game, and then you have polar opposite takes from two different duos on the channel, because when you look at Tiki Barber and who's Tiki's new co-host now? I can't remember. Oh, Evan Roberts. They like swapped or something. I don't know what happened with that. I guess when the dude Carton left, they put Tiki with Evan Roberts. They're the ones who were saying like Kayvon Thibodeau's out here having a solid year. He's getting after the quarterback. They're the one that's saying like, he's 9th in the league right now, tied for 9th in sacks. And then you have the same exact media outlet releasing two other people speaking on it and just don't know what they're talking about. I think that's just not fair.
That's how it is here in DC with Washington too on the radio. As somebody who listens to the Washington radio like religiously, it's the same thing here.
Yeah, I don't get that, because you kind of, not that everybody got to have the same takes, but you would like to see some cohesion going on.
Yeah.
But this New York Giants defense, man, and when I was on Bleacher Report last week, I talked about this a lot. The building blocks that they have on the defensive side of the ball. I got homies and I see people on Twitter talking about it's time to clean house. They want to lose games. There are actually people out here who want the New York Giants to lose games. And, I'm not for this tanking stuff with my team. That's just not my vibe. And I like the building blocks that we have on defense, right? And all of these players right here that I have listed on my stat sheet here, they all were pieces that I said could be building blocks for the New York Giants on that Bleacher Report stream. So everybody from Deonte Banks, Leonard Williams, Bobby O, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau. And yes, that's not a mistake when I say Leonard Williams. If you can find a way to pay Leonard Williams and have him take a pay cut and come back on his team, the combination of having Leonard Williams and having a guy like Dexter Lawrence in the interior of the defense reminds me of what Washington has going on, normally.
He was the one who blocked the field goal, right? That was him, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah. I had that on his stat sheet too. 2 tackles, 1 sack, and the blocked field goal for him. Jason Pinnock, 6 tackles, 4 quarterback hits. He led the New York Giants in quarterback hits. He's playing safety, for those of y'all that don't know, okay? Micah McFadden was another building block I talked about. 5 tackles. He had a half a sack, 2 quarterback hits. Xavier McKinney, another guy who I think is a building block. We brought Joe Shane here to be able to manage these contracts. It's what I expect from Joe Shane. So if you have players who you think can be building blocks moving forward, find a way to make these contracts work. That's all I'm going to say, because this defense is flying right now. They're looking like a top 10 defense the past 2 weeks in the league. Yes, it is against inferior competition. I understand that, because we went up against some juggernaut teams: Buffalo Bills, San Francisco 49ers, Dallas Cowboys, Miami Dolphins, right before this. It's hard to put up big numbers against those teams, but I think starting with the Miami Dolphins game, the 3 turnovers, yes, the New York Giants allowed 524 total yards. The 3 turnovers was the start to show you that this defense got some ballers on it. Even Nick McLeod, who filled in for Deonte Banks on a couple of plays, he had 2 pass breakups, and he was only out there for like 4 or 5 snaps. So great to see that. They all looked good. I love this defense. I think Wink Martindale, the ability to bring the pressure on Sam Howell being a young quarterback, knowing that he's already been struggling with being sacked this year. He was the quarterback who had the most sacks. The New York Giants are the team that's been sacked the most, but Sam Howell came in as the most sacked quarterback in this game. And the New York Giants came in with just 5 sacks on the day. They had 5 sacks in the first half. The lone Washington score in this game came from that muff punt from Sterling Shepard. And at the half, the Commanders were 0 for 7 on third down. They had 7 punts already, and Tress Way broke a career high for 350 yards worth of punts. And we know Tress Way is definitely a good punter. Now, under 50 yards of total offense at the half for the Commanders. Howell was sacked 5 times in the first half. It all came down to that 4th down stop, because the New York Giants squandered a bunch of opportunities in this game. If you look at the Kayvon Thibodeau missed interception, missed pick 6, and you look at the missed field goal by Graham Gano early in this game, there were so many points left out there. The fumble from Saquon Barkley. To me, we were going to score a touchdown on that drive where Saquon fumbled it. So I'm looking at that as an extra 7 right there. I'm looking at the pick 6 from Kayvon Thibodeau as an extra 7 right there. That's 14 points. And I'm looking at the Graham Gano missed field goal as another 3. So New York Giants leave 17 points out there on the board. And another mistake from Sterling Shepard, who, when I believe it's Eric Gray that went down, returning punts for us, you got to throw the OG back out there. And Sterling Shepard looked shaky on the first one, maybe the first 2, and then on the third one, he ends up muffing the punt. And that really gave y'all points. Outside of that, the Washington Commanders just had one drive that really was sustained. I think it was like a 17-play drive, the last drive of the game. I think that was y'all longest drive of the day. But the New York Giants, man, they did not allow a first-half touchdown in this game, and now it's been 2 straight weeks that we have not allowed a first-half touchdown. I also want to bring up these numbers from Lawrence Tynes, because I've been throwing a little bit of shade at Lawrence Tynes a little bit because of some of his takes, right?
I've been watching.
Yeah, I just think, like, you can't tell people how to fan. I think that's not a good look, especially from a former player. Like, you telling people, hey, stop talking about the quarterback controversy or whatever people want to call it, right? But he put up this tweet a couple of days ago. I brought this up on the Giant Overreaction as well. Buffalo was averaging 32 points a game. Washington was averaging 22 points a game. Held Buffalo to 14, held the Commanders to 7 points in that game. Now, I'll give you some of these numbers here, but I want you to talk about a little bit more of this. I definitely want to see where you're going with this one. 1 for 15 on third down, you're not going to win no game like that. It's no way. 14th time in NFL history that's ever happened. Commanders finished the day with 197 passing yards, 76 rushing yards. They only averaged 0.1 more yards passing the ball than they did running the ball. So Eric Bieniemy, here in Washington, all they're complaining about is, why is he passing the ball every down? It's starting to become a problem. You throw in this young quarterback out there, you're trying to make him be the next Patrick Mahomes, and it's not looking like that. He ended up the day with a QBR of 20.4. Floor is yours, brother.
Yeah. It was bad. There's nothing was really working, obviously. Before we get into the roadmap, I'll kind of just go over a few things that, kind of stood out to me as far as this game went. And listen, the third down situation was pretty
the Beard
brutal.
flipping that book right now, like it's like he just showed up to English class with Professor Awthentik, right? And we had an assignment, you had to read the book.
I got so many notes.
He showed up with the papers, and it's like,
I got so many notes.
Beard, can we see your homework here? And he's like,
Because I don't want to, mistake this, because this isn't like something that, I looked up and found on the internet. This is like me doing the math, like sitting down.
That's how you got to do, man. That's how you got to do in our business.
And doing the math, okay? Now, the third down thing was just, it's bad. It's historically bad. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, okay? But a lot of that has to do with not necessarily just converting on third downs as much as it is the success rate of your first and second down plays. The average to go on third down for the Commanders during this game, this includes 2 penalties that we had on third down, which made it even further third downs, okay? So I'm counting in 17 third downs instead of just 15, because, listen, if you're going to mess up twice on a third down, I'm including both of those, okay?
Okay,
so
I got you.
This is 17 third downs. The average distance to go is 9 yards. So it's like you 2 plays before your third down, you're averaging 9 yards to go. So it's super difficult in the National Football League to get a first down when you're looking at 9 yards for an average almost every single third down.
Yeah. Third and long, that's what you're trying to avoid.
We're talking about 3rd and 17. We had a 3rd and 22. We had a 3rd and 10, a 3rd and 11, a 3rd and 16, a 3rd and 14, 2 3rd and 9s. I mean, and a lot of that has to do with the penalties too.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yep.
That's one of the big things that was a huge disappointment in this game. Now, I might be wrong, and I say this because I think I'm pretty fair as far as not being a homer. Like when I see things that happen, like I will admit, like if it's a bad call, and even though it was in our favor, like I'm not one of those people to be like, oh no, it was the right call.
Pretty fair.
I'm pretty fair. Okay. That intentional grounding call was really bad, and that was a drive killer. That was an absolute drive killer. We had finally started to get things clicking. That was a drive killer.
But it was close. I thought it was close. Close.
They're usually pretty lenient on that as far as, where that running back was and where the ball went. That's usually not a call you don't see too often. But
Ron Rivera was like in his feelings, bro.
Oh, and I'm sure you watched the game, so you saw that he was saying that's the second year in a row because this was the same crew from the pass interference non-call in the end of the game last year.
That's real petty right there. I'm gonna give you solo screen for a second. I gotta just adjust this chair, but I am here listening.
Okay, so I'm just to kind of like go into some other things. Obviously, the third downs were there. The penalties, 10 penalties for 75 yards, 6 sacks for 52 yards. So those are some of the things that kind of stood out as obvious negatives. Now, big shout out. I always got to give Chase Young his flowers when he does his thing. And I saw some people asking me about Chase Young in the chat earlier. And people have been talking about it on Twitter. Chase Young is, and I said this, and I think you agreed with me when we saw him in person. It looked like his burst was back, his speed was back,
facts.
His first step was back. And I mean, people are gonna downplay it. Oh, it was against Justin Pugh off the couch, right? But he's been doing this all year long. He's been getting pressure. He's just finally kind of getting to the sack numbers. I want to say he's top 10 in sacks in the National Football League right now, if I'm not mistaken.
How many does he have? I could tell you if he is.
I think he has 6 or 7 on the year, maybe.
Yeah, if he's got 7, he's top 10.
So for me, Chase Young, at times it looked like the only person on defense that was really, standing out. And what's crazy is all the things I talked about, either on Revival or here, about the things that worried me the most about the New York Giants in this game literally happened. Okay. I talked about Darren Waller in the middle of the field. And listen, I think not enough people are going to give Tyrod Taylor enough credit on that throw. That throw was absolutely perfect placement in the touchdown throw in the end zone.
Oh, great throw.
Just a perfect throw. So shout out to Tyrod Taylor. But I was worried about Darren Waller. I said that you guys were going to score that first half touchdown. I said it was going to be Darren Waller, and sure enough, it was.
I figured we would too, man. You go into the season, man, in week 7, and you don't have a first half touchdown. I mean, it's got to happen. It really has to.
Eventually, right? It quits against us too. And then the other thing was, we talked about it. I said Jalen Hyatt scares the living daylights out of me because of his speed, and I just, for some reason, Washington's always giving up big plays, right? And it just they took advantage of it, and I knew it was going to happen.
What do you think about the call? With where the getting the feet down.
I thought so. Initially, I thought I saw it immediately that it was a catch, but
I don't think he caught it.
This is the thing that worried me when I saw it the second time afterwards, because I was convinced I saw the foot, but when they stopped it the second time on the replay, it looked like his foot was hovering. It wasn't actually on the ground. So and then obviously
the one thing I think is maybe the referee saw it live and he knew that back foot, because what they were saying on the broadcast was that he gained possession before the foot came off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the referees might have saw a drag after it came off the ground. And then when he reached the right foot out, he stepped out of bounds. So maybe it's just the way that it looked on the broadcast. But if they were counting the first foot on the ground, he kind of body caught it. Remind me how A.J. Brown catches the ball, like, you kind of cradle it.
Yeah.
I didn't think he had possession until maybe a half a second after that. So I was really worried about the call. And I was watching the game with my girl, and I told her, I was like, yeah, I don't think we're going to get this one. And when they gave us the call, I was just like completely ecstatic. And then to turn it over, just like 4 plays later was really a bummer.
Yeah. And so I would initially had thought it was a catch because of the way that it looked on the replay. But I didn't even look at it from your perspective with the possession, because I was so focused on the foot obviously being on the ground or not. So I didn't even really think about it from that perspective. But then obviously a couple other things, if Jalen Hyatt was in. So see, that's the thing too, is all of the like normal people who see it and just want to go crazy, they're not even looking at that foot, the other foot. They're just looking at the second foot out of bounds, because that's what they showed initially, because they didn't initially, they were thinking that was the reason why he was out of bounds, but he had already gotten 2 feet according to the ruling before that foot had already went out of bounds.
They explained it on the broadcast. When they were showing him about to throw the challenge flag, they were like, that right foot might be out. But then when they went to go replay it, they did talk about that. They're like, his foot is still on the ground, and that's when they think he's gaining possession. I thought the foot raised off the ground. I don't think it's that particular foot that they actually marked him, in bounds. I think that he might have toe dragged the back foot just a little bit before he stomped out of bounds with the right.
That's what I saw too. And then obviously the Eric Bieniemy situation is something that, is being talked about. I will say that I am, I've been critical of Eric Bieniemy at times this year already, right? But not to the extent where it's like people talking about, we were better off with Scott Turner and Taylor Heineke than we are with Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell, right? Like, that's nonsense talk. It doesn't make sense. It has absolutely zero validity, in my opinion. Okay?
I can't go zero. Right? Because I think Bieniemy's system is more risky, and it gives you a bigger, higher reward to be able to have your quarterback have some of these big games like we've seen from Sam Howell, who's put up a ton of yards this year, and he has a good amount of touchdowns as well. But then it's also prone to have your quarterback holding the ball a little bit longer as well. Whereas Scott Turner's system more relied on the run. I mean, a mix of both would.
He didn't even run the ball either, because how many damn times last year did I try to talk about running the ball? All of last year, except for the one little stretch.
To Eric Bieniemy,
yes, in comparison to Eric Bieniemy, yes,
it's a
major difference. There is.
And that's what I was about to say, is that you would to take the best of both worlds from both of them would make this offense probably move the way it should. But when you just drop back and pass every down, secondaries know what to do. It's pretty easy. You got to defend the pass, 2 over the top, 2 safeties over the top, or just try to send the house and get pressure on Sam Howell. It's making the game plans, I think, a little bit more easier, and it's making Brian Robinson look like a really average running back.
And I think that I think that people have to remember too that Eric Bieniemy wasn't necessarily always calling the plays in Kansas City. Andy Reid was calling the plays. So like this is Eric Bieniemy first time 100% calling the plays from beginning to end, right? Brand new quarterback, brand new system, all of that stuff is brand new, right? We're 7 games into a season. To tell me that this is a failure, that Sam Howell is nothing but a backup quarterback, that that Eric Bieniemy, this is why he's never gotten a head coaching job. Like, these are the sort of things that are coming out of the Commanders fan base's mouth.
It's
and
not
to
fair.
me,
it's not fair.
It's not fair. It's 7 games in.
It could be accurate.
It could be, yeah,
and
for
I
sure.
think about like when you look at other young quarterbacks who have either succeeded or failed before, people have takes that come out early on, right? We've been doing this with Daniel Jones now for 5 years. Somebody in the first 7 games is going to be right or wrong.
Yeah.
So I just don't think it's fair. I was talking about it with a couple of my homies in the group chat. They were like, Sam Howell's not it. And it was in the first quarter they were saying that. And I'm just like, kid's, on his 8th game here, 7th, 8th game. You got to give him at least his shot to be able to get better. Most quarterbacks don't hit the ground running you don't see the best version of themselves, even though, like Daniel Jones, we kind of did see the best version of him in his first debut game.
Yeah.
Right? But for most quarterbacks, you don't see that version, the best version of them until later down the line.
And I think that people, I'd say this over and over again. It is so difficult to win in the National Football League. It is so difficult to have a elite quarterback. So much so where I think right now, at this point in the season, I mean, we always talk about Patrick Mahomes and then everybody else, right? But there's been conversations of other quarterbacks being in that class, okay? Maybe not necessarily neck and neck with Patrick Mahomes, but I mean, Josh Allen, they just lost to the New England Patriots. Josh Allen turns the ball all the time. Jalen Hurts has got almost as many interceptions this year as he does touchdowns. Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert have kind of, tapered down a little bit. Like, it is almost impossible to just, I think people have this expectation that quarterbacks aren't allowed to have bad games because of people like Patrick Mahomes.
When you have a resume, though, I think the grace is a little bit better.
For sure.
The leash is longer. All those quarterbacks you named have great resumes.
But this is the difference, though. It's like, if you don't have the great resume, then you have to be just starting, right?
Yeah, to an extent. Or you just have not. The thing that I think with Sam Howell is that people are starting to recognize is that he does not have the elite ceiling. To a casual fan, they're just going to say he's not the guy. Doesn't mean he can't win games in this league. But when you look at Sam Howell, it's not leaps and bounds above a guy like Gardner Minshew.
But is it not leaps and bounds above a guy like Taylor Heineke?
No, it's not.
Oh, I completely, absolutely disagree with you.
What is his? Look at his stats right now. What is his touchdown to interception ratio right now?
9-7.
That sounds like Taylor Heineke.
Maybe based on those,
it's different play styles. It's definitely different play styles. I'm sure the yardage is going to be more for Sam Howell, but and I'm giving these people the benefit of the doubt that you're talking about for why they have those kind of takes, right? Like, when you look at the gap between a guy like Sam Howell and a guy that you're talking about, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, the Justin Herberts, that's a larger gap than what you're seeing from Taylor Heineke to Sam Howell right now.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I will agree with that. But for me, it's just that there's a lot of moving parts that go into it. That's why football is such.
You want to just see him get the chance. I respect that.
Yeah,
right? Like,
I want to see, because
before people give him the criticism that I'm giving Daniel Jones in the 4th and the 5th year, you want to see them give him the chance, because I didn't come out in 2019 when we first started this podcast being as critical of Daniel Jones as I am today. I'm looking at a 5th-year quarterback. That's why I'm extremely critical, right? You just want people to give him his grace and be able to, at least allow him, give him the chance to be able to go out there and show you that he's a better quarterback than a lot of these names that people have seen in the past with the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, because to me, in my opinion, he is the best quarterback that we've had based on my view of him playing the game, like not even necessarily numbers, but just the throws that he makes, the ability to make plays. He's the best quarterback we've had since Kirk Cousins. There's not a question about it in my mind.
Yeah, there's not. Y'all really haven't had good quarterbacks.
We haven't had good quarterbacks, yeah.
So you're really just comparing them to Taylor Heineke. That's really it. What are the other guys? It's Kyle Allen, Dwayne Haskins, Carson Wentz.
Alex Smith,
man, I don't know if you could go there, because Alex Smith, the one thing I did like about him was pre-snap read and taking care of the ball. And he was playing on that hobbled leg.
Which is the one thing about Sam Howell that I think was a downfall of him in this game. I think he did make some mistakes with the pre-snap reads, but he absolutely changed that up in the second half. He was reading the line of scrimmage a lot better in the second half. I think you guys only had 1 sack in the second half. There was the one play where he made the audible and called Terry on the quick bubble screen, which ended up being a big play in that drive. In the throws that he makes some big time throws. It's just everything about Sam Howell is mirroring everything about the Washington Commanders. Absolute inconsistency. And it's hard to be consistent as a quarterback if everything around you is being inconsistent, and that's the one thing that kills me about the Washington football, the Commanders as a whole, is that they can never never put together a complete game. The defense plays really well, the offense stinks. The offense plays really well, the defense stinks. Sam Howell's playing really well, can't run the ball. Running backs look great, Sam Howell can't pass. It's just there's so many inconsistencies that's really holding us down. And then
those are the deficiencies of bad or below average teams. We've been dealing with that too. And even the great teams deal with that. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles and how we praise them for being able to find ways to win like that. Right?
And also, I've been a huge Ron Rivera supporter. When people were like just ready, right? And I can admit when it's time to find a piece of cardboard and slide off of the hill. Okay,
yeah, it's time
because I'm there. And listen, you can go back all the way to our first appearance. If it wasn't together, it might have been a solo appearance I had before this season started. I was on Ref the District, and I was on record of saying, Ron Rivera is done.
Yeah,
it's not like saying it like, oh, he's done, like he's just not going to make it because he's not a good coach. I'm telling you right now, it has been known already going into this season that this is Ron Rivera's last year. And it's like, there's no point in everybody being like, Ron Rivera needs to go, fire Ron Rivera. They're not going to fire him in the middle of the season. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, that makes a really tough situation because if y'all are winning, he could have got his job back. The conversation was on here too. I don't know if you had it on Ref the District as well, but we talked about it. And the pushback I gave you was if they get to the record that you have them at, how do you fire him after that?
But see, I don't necessarily think that it's a firing situation. I think Ron Rivera is done. He's had enough. He's going to step down. If he doesn't get fired, he's going to resign at the end of this year.
Even if it's not a firing situation, right? What coach do you know is going to go? You had 10 wins on your schedule?
Mm-hmm.
What coach is going to get 10 wins and just go, I think I'm done? That's why I gave you pushback on the first episode about that.
I just think that he physically, mentally, it's been so much on him that, especially with the way that Commander seasons go, like the up and downs. You know what I'm saying? And
he's responsible for a lot of it.
It's weighing on him. And I just think that he's realizing that there's no exit out of this. He could win every single game left on this schedule, and they would still want to fire him.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with it, but I'm telling you that's the fan base.
13-4. Oh, you meant the fan base.
The fan base,
yes. Yeah, I get that part for sure because he should have been fired last year.
So
we talked about that midseason.
For me, it's just obviously
when your coach doesn't bring anything to the table, when you get to the press conference and the beat reporters know more about the team than you as the coach, there's a problem there.
Yeah, there's definitely a problem there. But for me, it's just I'm past the point. I still see victories on this schedule. Now, I had us at 4-3 at this juncture. I had us losing preseason. I had us losing to the Giants in this game. So
because it was at
New York. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I still have belief that there's 10 wins in this schedule.
That sounds crazy, but go ahead.
But it's hard to believe at the same time because you see games like this where it's so hard as a fan to grasp, right? Because I try to look at things logically. I don't just try to look at it like we stink, trade everybody, fire everybody, cut everybody. Like people think that you could just you can't just get rid of everybody. That's not how this. You can, but you can't.
You need a realization point to know where you're at. If the Washington Commanders believe that they're in the situation that the Carolina Panthers were in last season, where they were right around 500, and you know that these are not the future pieces, then start selling them off.
Yeah, you can do that, but it's just what I'm saying is speaking to the illogical aspect of it, where you can't literally just. It can't just all just shut down. Like
me and a lot of my homies in the group
perspective.
Chat, we have this conversation all the time. And the people who say you can't do that, those are the fans that don't want to deal with the rebuild. They don't want to deal with their team being 3-14 or 4-13. They don't want to deal with that. Washington is in the position where they should have been committed to a rebuild.
They should have done it when they first brought Ron Rivera in, but you have to remember what the circumstances that we were dealing with was unlike any other franchise in the National Football League.
The Dan Snyder stuff?
The Dan Snyder situation, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to that too much and use it as an excuse to not rebuild, but a lot of the times when teams don't rebuild, it has to do with the owner. I'm a New York Giants fan, bro. We have not committed to a rebuild since I don't know when. When was the last time we committed to a rebuild? It didn't happen in my life.
Now
people are starting to look at it like
not a lot of
time.
teams do it. Like let's think about it. How many teams have really been through a complete rebuild?
Detroit Lions just did it fast too,
and they did it without drafting a quarterback too.
Yeah, and now they got Hooker from Tennessee, who will probably take over the reins when it's time for them to either go for a championship in the future or when they're post a championship with Jared Goff. The Carolina Panthers are doing it right now. The Houston Texans have done it. The Jacksonville Jaguars just did it 2 years ago with Trevor Lawrence. The Los Angeles Chargers.
But the Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't know if I would necessarily consider that to be a rebuild because they were in the playoffs 2 years before they had
think roster. When they fired Urban Meyer, they brought in 3 new wide receivers, 3 new pass catchers that all caught over 500. They got rid of James Robinson, drafted ATN. They got rid of Gardner Minshew, brought in Trevor Lawrence. That was a rebuild, bro. They had the first pick in the draft 2 years in a row.
You're right on that.
That's a rebuild, right? Los Angeles Rams in 2016 when they drafted Jared Goff, 1,000% a rebuild. Absolutely a rebuild. And I could go back further. Those are just the recent rebuilds. So, like I said, man, I'm telling you, like, and for me too, bro, like, I don't want to commit my team to having to go through a rebuild and deal with bad play and have to watch a young rookie quarterback try to develop. I don't want to watch that either. It's bad football.
Do you think that the talent, from a football perspective, do you not think that there is enough talent on the Washington Commanders team to move a few pieces and not necessarily have to do a complete rebuild? I understand
if
that
I was the Commanders, I would go all out on the quarterback. It'll let you know if it's time for the rebuild. You know, you see Aaron Rodgers out there on the market, even Russell Wilson. I know it didn't work out for the Denver Broncos, but when that was a thing and it was out there, or when they were talking about trading Lamar Jackson, I would go all in. You got Terry McLaurin, you got Jahan Dotson, who's kind of regressed this year a little bit, Logan Thomas, Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel was pretty much a 1-2 duo when he was in Carolina. You got 2 good running backs over there that aren't getting any younger, 4 first-rounders on that defensive line, good secondary that has good youth. This defense has regressed. People are calling y'all trash this year, but the past 2 years, y'all defense was pretty good. So you have the pieces there. Linebacker core was a bit of a weakness.
So you think that Sam Howell's the reason why we're not winning games right now?
No, I'm not. I hope that's not what you got from what I
just
said.
That's not what I'm
saying.
I'm asking it. I'm asking the question.
Is that Sam Howell is an unknown. He's an unknown commodity on a team that has proven players, like you just said, right? So why not just go get the quarterback so you can figure it out now? If you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers and you can't go out there and make a playoff push, it's time to blow it up. Simple as that. It's not like y'all are in a position like the New York Giants where you got one of the youngest teams in the NFL. These guys are just getting older. You're wasting Terry McLaurin's prime. You wasted Antonio Gibson's prime when he was 3rd in the league in rushing. You're now putting Brian Robinson through that exact same funnel. In 2 years, these guys are going to be old. When was the first rounder drafted on that defensive line? Like 2017?
Yeah.
Dude, come on. We're wasting time trying to find a quarterback. That's why I've never agreed with anything Ron Rivera has done. I will give him props for this, that he tried every damn way except the way I'm talking about. He tried to bring in the old school bridge quarterback veteran. He tried to bring in an unproven young guy.
They tried 2 times to get stud quarterbacks, and they were unsuccessful. Matthew Stafford and Russell Wilson.
Well, those, when I say try, I mean you got the guy.
But, I mean, you can only do what you can do, though.
Bro, and this is the NFL, bro. Money talks. How do you think Aaron Rodgers got to be a New York Jet? Money.
But this is the problem, though, is that you're dealing with Daniel Snyder. If he's the one that's calling the shots in the end.
Well, that's why I said, bro, like I can't speak to that. But if organizations and front offices are the reason why teams fail, because they don't want to commit to the rebuild. That's how I started this, right? Mm-hmm. So I can't speak to Dan Snyder not wanting to do it. I'm just telling you what they should have done. right?
Okay.
It's the same thing as San Francisco 49ers, right? You got the whole entire roster completely built up from top to bottom, wide receiver, running back, offensive line, D-line, linebackers, secondary, all that, and then you go out there and you draft Trey Lance, a project quarterback who's only played like 12 college games, and you thought that was going to fix it. You knew you had to develop him. Why wouldn't you just go out there and get the proven quarterback and figure out if you had a Super Bowl caliber team right now? Same thing for the Washington Commanders. I can't speak to what Dan Snyder did wrong. I'm not Dan Snyder. I can't speak to that, right? So if he is the buffer that blocks everything from happening, you can blame it all on him, right? At the end of the day, they built up a roster in every other position except the quarterback position. They tried every other way except bringing in a proven veteran like a Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, or let me think about any other quarterback that you might have been able to acquire. That's like, I mean, even in 2020, going out there and trying to acquire Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, those guys that you know can win. Matthew Stafford, do what you got to do to bring these guys in the building. You would have found out if it was time to rebuild this team or not a lot earlier.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, they did try. They tried with the Denver Broncos. The Broncos did, and Russell Wilson said he wouldn't play here. You know, like, right. And same thing with Matthew Stafford. Both of those trades.
What year was Jared Goff traded? 2020? Yeah, 2020.
Was it 2020 or 2019?
Yeah, because Matthew Stafford won the Super Bowl in 2021, his first year. Tom Brady and Tampa Bay won it in 2020. You can't be playing around with the quarterback position, and that's what Ron Rivera did. Three years in Washington, he had 9 different quarterbacks start for him.
Yeah,
none of them was a proven guy.
None of them. And then going into this season, though, I think we and I, speaking for myself, was optimistic about the outlook of Sam Howell at this quarter, thinking that Sam Howell was enough to of a quarterback. Obviously, that's definitely a thought, and because you have no, facts or tape to back up your feeling or your thought on Sam Howell, because you have one game and you have college, right? But I mean, you saw him in person with me. Like, to me, I don't think I think that Sam Howell can win at the National Football League. I think with Sam Howell at the quarterback position and Eric Bieniemy, I think you can get to 10, 11 wins. I don't know if it's happening at the pace that I thought it was going to happen. I think it's a lot more road bumps, a lot more, downs than I thought it was going to be.
What was the pace? What did you think the pace would be?
I thought we would hit the ground.
We're 7 games in?
I unrealistically thought we would hit the ground running, 100%. I unrealistically thought we would hit the ground running. And that's on me just being
that's a
awfully optimistic. That's a homer take. Yeah,
it's a very homer take. It's like, I got this quarterback drafted in the 5th round. He didn't play all last season, even when there was a major quarterback problem. But I think he's going to come out here and just hit the ground running. Can't think like that.
Yeah, that
all these quarterbacks take time to develop.
I can admit that that I was wrong in that thought. But I feel like that there has to be some sort of medium, and I feel like we're not in that medium. I think that fans are expecting to win right now. And I don't think that they can,
because they thought that the quarterback was going to fix it, right?
Yeah.
But you kind of got to look at these upgrades. And when I like to look at the deficiencies of a quarterback rather than the skill set of a quarterback, right? Because you look at Sam Howell, he can throw it. He's got a good arm, can throw it deep, make the intermediate, make all the NFL throws. He's semi-mobile and whatnot and all that, right? Between the ears, man, running an Eric Bieniemy, Kansas City-like offense, pre-snap read is so important.
Yeah.
You need a savvy
you think
guy
that's
to come
something
in and do
that can be coached, though, and you would see some sort of progression over time. I mean, you saw it in the progression in the second half of this game. So,
yeah, I think on a longer timeline, though, you can't expect basically a rookie quarterback to come in and be a savvy pre-snap read. There's 2 statements here I wanted to bring up. Doc, he said they tried with Carson Wentz, but the thing is Carson Wentz had already exited his prime and he was post-injury. So I didn't look at that like Carson Wentz is a proven guy. Like,
we got fooled by his year in Indianapolis before we signed him a little bit.
Which 27-7, right? It's okay. 27-7 is the year that I would like to see from Daniel Jones this year, and I'd be like, that's a good year. But I don't look at 27-7 and go, damn, dog, you got Trevor Lawrence out there, or like you got, Josh Allen out there. If he would have put up like 34 and 34-8, then I might think that, right? Mm-hmm. I think everybody knew that the Carson Wentz thing was like a last-ditch effort. He had a 0 dead cap hit on the last 2 years of the contract. It really cost Washington just $28 million to bring him in, and that was it. And then Sean Jackson brought up another good point here, too, and I got a really good answer for this. He said, Beard, should Washington have drafted Justin Herbert that year instead of drafting Chase Young? What you think? And then I'll give my thoughts on it.
if you can go back in time, everything makes a little bit more sense in hindsight. I mean, not even Justin Herbert, but Tua Tagovailoa too. But I think that at that time they were comfortable with the quarterbacks that they had, which they're 1 year removed from drafting Dwayne Haskins.
And that's really the main point. I don't think that they were comfortable with him. It's not that. It's that he hadn't had his opportunity yet.
Yeah.
Dwayne Haskins wasn't the day one starter as a rookie in 2019. So what are you going to do? You're going to draft a quarterback and pull the Arizona Cardinals, not even allow Dwayne Haskins, who was a first-round pick, top 20, I believe he was. I think he was like the 17th pick in the draft, and you're just going to go with a quarterback right after that? That takes some balls right there. A lot of people say the same thing about Daniel Jones and the New York Giants, and I'm like, you really think that like the Giants could have drafted Justin Herbert in 2020? It just couldn't happen. Now, if y'all would have went and tried to get
nobody was talking
Tua,
about Justin Herbert either in the top 5. Let's just be perfectly honest.
Only because of he regressed the year he went back to school. Dave Gettleman in 2019 wanted Justin Herbert, and he settled for Daniel Jones. Now, what I was going to say about Tua is, if Tua went to Washington, his career is ruined, bro.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, too, that you have to think about this. If Justin Herbert goes to Washington, there's no telling that Justin Herbert would be Justin Herbert.
No, I'm not with you on that. Definitely
but you
not
could say that about Tua, but you can't say it about Justin Herbert?
Bro, like, you got to watch some tape on Justin Herbert a little bit more, because the arm talent that Justin Herbert has, there's maybe only one other guy in the league that has that kind of arm talent.
I understand that. I'm not debating that. But all I'm saying
like,
is that
make the wrong read and just like still beat you.
It's such a hypothetical situation that
it is. But I think you can more confidently say it about Tua, because we see where Tua struggles. He's not durable. He has to throw the ball to anticipation because he lacks arm strength, right? That's his whole game, quick game. He needs wide receivers that are going to get open really fast because he's not mobile. He's not going to extend the play. Justin Herbert, man, can have people like draped on him and make throws down the field 60 yards, no problem.
He can, but I mean, we've seen Justin Herbert in the last recent weeks. He's been off a little bit too.
You've seen him in the last recent weeks end games with an interception, and that makes people think that it's bad games.
Yeah, I think that's hogwash. I don't believe any of that.
That's why I think there's no validity to that. Like, it's the same thing that people be like, Josh Allen turns the ball over. You know what you're going to get with those quarterbacks. They're high risk, high reward. That's how they play the game. But that's also what makes them great. There's no quarterback out here who's not playing the game confidently that's going to be elite right now. Not one of them.
Yeah.
There ain't one. So when I look at those kind of quarterbacks, I can confidently say Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, bro, these are quarterbacks that you could put them in any system. They're going to look like what they look like. Now, their numbers might fluctuate a little bit. You might see more turnovers from them or whatever, but they are who they are. They are not systematic, system-based quarterbacks.
Understood.
None of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Herbert is just one of those guys that when you talk about arm talent, man, like, dare I say, Herbert might have more arm talent than Patrick Mahomes does. He might, but the thing is, Patrick Mahomes, I think, has the ability to be like off platform and make those same throws better than Justin Herbert does.
He makes throws. Patrick Mahomes makes throws where they tell everybody else don't throw that like that.
Yeah, and Herbert too, man. Like, yo, the throw that comes to mind when you say that is the one against the New York Giants 2 years ago before the half. He's rolling all the way to his right. He gets damn near to the sideline, and he throws a backside post on the opposite side of the field.
And dropped it in
50
the bucket.
yards down the field, right in the bucket for a touchdown. It's like, no, not many quarterbacks can do that, man. And that's why I think Herbert is the kind of talent. Like, if they put a real running game, I like Austin Eckler, right? But I think there's a bit of the same thing that's happening with New York, right? Where like you cannot have a hybrid running back be a every down running back in the NFL. That's just my opinion.
They need to use Joshua Kelly more, and I think
I think you just need another guy. Like, I like Kelly too. Joshua Kelly came out of UCLA, right? Mm-hmm. I like him. I think he's a good back, but I just think you need another guy. Like, Dak Prescott, to me, saw so much success with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, towards the back end of Ezekiel Elliott's maybe the last 2 years. Like, where I just felt like that mix makes it so easy for a quarterback, because to me, playing the quarterback position, you are an advantage when you can get the defense off balance. It's why Jalen Hurts, to me, is one of my, top 6 quarterbacks in the league right now. It's not because of arm talent, obviously. Yeah. I mean, he's a good thrower of the football.
The intangibles.
But it's all that he can do to make a defense be off balance, the strength, the speed, the agility. Whereas a guy like Daniel Jones, I feel like he has the strength, right? But he doesn't have the agility. Mm-hmm. He's got the arm and the strength, but if he had the agility to be able to move in the pocket and do things that Jalen Hurts can do within a phone booth, he would be that similar style quarterback. So those are the guys, to me, that they're upper echelon. They're a step ahead of all the other guys because of the intangibles to be able to keep defenses off balance.
Yeah, and I think that we just have to realize that this Washington team is what it is. It's a can lose to any game, and it's a team that can put up 30 points a game. The other narrative too that's being pushed around is that they've scored 7 or less points 2 times in this season, right?
Yeah.
And it never happened before under Scott Turner, right? But never in the last 5 years that we've scored more points, the 30 points, 20 plus points.
What were they talking about? Through 7 games? Is that what it is?
No, ever, in the season.
2 games with 7 or under in the whole entire season never happened with Scott Turner? That don't make no sense.
Yeah.
Dang.
It doesn't. But
I mean,
you also,
it seems like a bit like a cherry pick stat too.
Yeah, it is. Very cherry pick stat. It's just, we have seen, for me, I've seen enough to have hope moving forward throughout the rest of the year. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not expecting us to win the Super Bowl. I'm barely I had us making the last playoff spot, give or take. And I still think we have a chance at that. But there just has to be some vast improvements.
Fine, man. You guys in Washington, even though I'm here, it's overreaction Mondays and Tuesdays for y'all, in a major way. You still sitting at 3-4.
Yeah, still sitting at 3-4. But they need to make some changes. I wish they would have approached some of these other positions the way that they approached Emmanuel Forbes. You know what I'm saying? Especially on the offensive line. Yeah. Just, make the moves. It's obviously not working. Let's change some things up. And obviously Eric Bieniemy has to be held accountable to a certain extent also with the lack of running the ball, and I think
he's a big problem right now.
That's a big problem. I open the show with this and I talk about it every damn week. You got to run the ball. I understand it's 2023. We're a passing league and this and that, but you got to run the ball. There's got to be better situational football. I think Sam Howell has to continue to progress. I don't think that any of those sacks were necessarily on Sam Howell. Maybe one, the one you and I talked about, the third down where he faked it and took that one. And I see a lot of people breaking down 22 and all of this, and they're like, oh, well, he had this, he had that. And I'm like, there's some times where that makes sense, yes. And then there's other times where it's yo, you're pausing it. We're looking at it, fast forward, rewinding it. We're talking about tenths of a second, 1 second difference between getting laid out. That's what makes great quarterbacks, right?
Listen, the average time to throw in the NFL this year is 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrod Taylor with the New York Giants right now is seeing success because he processes the field much faster. That is the cerebral thing that NFL quarterbacks have. It's how a golfer can just drop it right on the green from 150, 170 outright. It's that cerebral type of thing about knowing what your capabilities are. So I don't mind people watching tape and pausing it and being because we can't see it like how Sam Howell is seeing it.
Yeah.
He's in the
it's
NFL
not that I
making
don't.
these
I don't.
throws
It's not
for a
that I
reason.
mind it. I'm just saying that
I'm just saying you kind of said they're almost you insinuated they're nitpicking because they're pausing it and they're looking at these little small windows. And I think that's how the quarterbacks see it. You got to understand that the quarterback knows the play before it happens. So he's envisioning it as it's going to happen up. Read 1, read 2, read 3, getting rid of the ball. It's what makes them great, man. It's literally what makes them great. So, a fan like me, when I'm looking at tape, bro, sometimes I go back and rewind the play 8, 9 times before it sinks into what's actually happening on the play.
But my thing is that I think that some people are expecting a Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady sort of throw on some of these plays where it's how Tom Brady is. Nobody got rid of the ball faster than nobody was more decisive than Tom Brady at the quarterback position, right? Sam Howell is not Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that might be the big mistake. It's you bring in Eric Bieniemy and he's asking a young kid to run a complex offense. That's it.
So hopefully, I think they know. They have to know, right? Eric Bieniemy has to know. I'm tripping, man. There was no passes after that one game, the Denver Broncos game. Man, they was killing it with the screens. Dog, we ain't seen a damn screen since that game.
I'm with you on that. The Giants too, man.
And I know you were talking about it a lot with the the blitzing. It's almost you would think that after a first half of just getting obliterated by the blitz that you would call some screens, you know what I'm saying? But it's just they have to they're working through things, and I don't think people have the patience for this process to play out, basically.
Yeah, the expectations were a little bit too high, I think, from the entire fan base, not just
Mm-hmm.
from you. I just think, bringing in a quarterback like this, like what is the last story like this? Like Davis Mills or something like that? Like, you can't expect these guys to hit the ground running and just be great quarterbacks right off the
Brock
bat.
Purdy.
Yeah, Brock Purdy, but look at the system around him.
Yeah, we don't have.
They're
that
like, here,
complete
you
system.
come fit into this. They weren't like, hey, we're bringing in something brand new, and you brand new too, but we're going to mix that. We're going to expect you to run this, though, like you've been running this for the whole entire duration of your career. It's just not a fact. You really got to look at it a certain way. And I saw some people in the chat talking about some good things, man, like, your interior defensive line maybe trying to trade away some of these pieces and bring in some different assets, because I think y'all are a bit overstacked on the defensive line a little bit. And when it comes to the trenches and the other side of the ball, y'all are lacking some big bodies up there on that offensive line.
It's tough because I'm still a fan, right? And that's okay. It's okay to be a fan.
A fan. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
Like it's okay to be a fan. Like I'm attached, and I'm man enough to admit it, right? Like I don't know, like if you can remember, like as a baseball fan when you're young, right? Like you get super attached to baseball players, and then you see a guy get traded away, and you're just like. It hurts, right? It hurts. You don't see it.
In our era, that wasn't a thing, really, right? Like, if you was drafted
especially
by that
when we got
team
older,
and you was a star, you stayed with that team.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when Jerry Rice left San Fran, and when Joe Montana went to the Chiefs, it was like what? What you mean, Joe Montana in a Chiefs uniform? Like, hell no, right? And even Emmitt Smith going to the Cardinals, these things did not happen as frequently as they do now. The CBA deal and whatnot has definitely changed that.
Free
People
agency
trying to get their
changed
quarterback.
everything,
Free agency too, but I think what really changed it was the rookie quarterback contracts. Like, getting these guys within the first 4 years to try to get them to a Super Bowl has changed the last 20 years of football.
So I think I'm to speak on the moving of the pieces. I think I'm that part of me is still stubborn. That part of my fandom is still stubborn, where like I want to make it work with these pieces, right? But I am getting to the point where I wouldn't call it bad practice or malpractice or whatever if they did trade some of these guys away. It's just the difficult part is knowing which ones to move and which ones to keep. Like Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, it's difficult, So I don't think that anybody moves, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think they move anybody. I think you have to remember too the situation that we're in with a new ownership, and you're probably looking at a clean house at the end of the year outside of Eric Bieniemy. So
you talking about with the coaching staff,
front office, everybody will be gone except for I believe. Some people believe Eric Bieniemy will be gone too. I personally believe that Eric Bieniemy will stay here, and I think that that's has a little bit to do with the way that the season is going with Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell, because I think that Eric Bieniemy is already in line to be the next head coach. That's my belief, right?
Yeah, I
think that a lot of people believe that they're going to bring in a new GM, they're going to bring in a new head coach, and they're going to want their own quarterback. So Sam Howell's going to be gone anyways, right? So my belief is that they're trying to see if Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell can be the future, just the two of them. And I think everybody else is going to be clean house, so the entire front office. So I don't think that they're going to make any moves right now, knowing moving forward that everybody's going to be gone. I think they're going to try and wait this season out and keep everything as is. Big shout out to Patrick Mahomey in the building. Shout out Patrick for the $5 super chat. Says, I'ma just pretend I didn't hear that. Herbert has more talent than me. Comment. No, I just smoked Herbert with 4 touchdowns, 424 yards on 76% completion percentage. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so you got to understand context. I'm talking arm talent. That's why I brought up Patrick Mahomes and his ability to throw off platform. To me, just pure arm talent, I think that Justin Herbert is right there, maybe can make some of the better throws. But Patrick Mahomes he's obviously the better player. So shout out to Patrick Mahomes. Appreciate you donating the $5 to the channel one time. We got a bunch of super chats, over here we need to go over. So let's just run through them.
All right, we're going to start off with our guy, Independent Outsider, with a $4.99 super chat. Says, Tyrod Taylor, fantastic mentor if DJ can learn from him, but I question DJ's processing speed. Start Tyrod versus Jets. Special teams is trash. Fire special teams coach.
I'm not for this firing coaches because of what's happening with the personnel. Like, I forget our special teams coach, OG black dude, bald head dude, but he's not the person that's bringing in the personnel who's saying, yeah, we're gonna put Sterling Shepard back there at punt return. He's not the person that says we're going to get rid of Jamison Crowder and sign Cole Beasley to the roster, and then Cole Beasley midway through the season goes, hey, I'm just clocked out. I don't want to play anymore. Can you free me from the contract? That's not on him. The players are out there. He's coaching the players. So I feel the same way about Bobby Johnson on the offensive line. Like, he's not picking the personnel over there. He's just trying to develop these players. So I'm not for firing the special teams coach. I believe that's McGinty. That's the special teams coach over there. I'm not for firing him, but the special teams has been – it's been blah, it's really the returners, man. Kick return, having Eric Gray be your kick returner, and he's a guy, no explosiveness, no explosive speed. He's young. I just don't see that as a guy who's a viable option to be returning kicks. And then you see Jamison Crowder over there in Washington doing damage in the special teams. As far as our punt game goes, our punt, the Scottish Hammer been balling out. He's been playing extremely well, one of the best players through the first 4 or 5 games of the year. And Graham Gano is kind of going through a little tough stretch here, but we know what we got out of Graham Gano. I like what I'm seeing out of this special teams outside of the returners and the return game, so I'll go there with that. Now, when it comes to the mentorship of Tyrod Taylor to Daniel Jones, I think right now, man, like, Tyrod Taylor's not looking at this like I'm mentoring anybody. He's looking at this like, man, I'm trying to get out here and win some ball games for this New York Giants team and put them in position to maybe be able to go back and get a little playoff run going here. I picked us at 8-9 at the beginning of the year with the asterisk being we would make it to the playoffs. I had us at 2-5 at this exact moment in time, and on that exact show, you can go back and check out that stat prediction and record prediction show. This is exactly where I saw us at. I didn't think that the offense would be as bad as it was through the first 4 or 5 games of the year, but now they're starting to stride and they're starting to get things together. You look at what Tyrod Taylor brings to this offense with the lack of healthy offensive linemen. Tyrod Taylor is a faster processor, better in the pocket maneuvering, pocket presence, pocket manipulation. When he scrambles, he's looking down the field. I love the touchdown pass to Saquon Barkley. I love the scramble and hitting Darren Waller on the outside. I love the little seam route down to Darren Waller in the red zone for the touchdown. These are things that we have not seen these from Daniel Jones at all during his career, but this season these are things that we have not seen from Daniel Jones. Now, this is another thing that I want to talk about too. I opened up with this stat about Tyrod Taylor. There's another stat that's very alarming. That's almost as alarming as the 38 consecutive games without multiple passing touchdowns for Daniel Jones. Tyrod Taylor had over 200 yards in this game. He had 2 touchdowns. He had 0 interceptions. The last time that you got to go back to look at a game that Daniel Jones had like that was in the regular season, and if you want to include postseason, he did do this against the Minnesota Vikings in the postseason. You have to go all the way back to 2019 to find a game where Daniel Jones had at least 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and over 200 yards. That type of statistic is not something that you see from guys who are banging on the door of elite or guys who are, franchise quarterbacks, as we call them. So there's a lot of problems with this offense that I think that a guy like Tyrod Taylor, who, I'm glad Patrick Mahomes brought this up, because when you look at Daniel Jones, he has better arm talent than Tyrod Taylor. But right now, at this particular moment in time, I think Tyrod Taylor is the better player for the New York Giants offense.
And I said that going into this game when I was asked who would I'd rather see playing quarterback. I would, even as good as Daniel Jones has performed against Washington over his career, I would have rather have seen this current version of Daniel Jones than Tyrod Taylor. I think this has a lot to do too with what you talked about, between the ears. I think right now, mentally, there's something is a little off with Daniel Jones. I think a lot of that has to do with just insecurities and stabilities within the offensive line. But the thing is about Tyrod Taylor is that doesn't seem to phase him the same way as it phases Daniel Jones. And I think that's a huge difference between the two of them, especially right now on this current New York Giants situation.
Yeah, and to give y'all a couple of statistics on pressures, Daniel Jones has been sacked on 14% of his dropbacks this year. Tyrod Taylor has been sacked on just 6% of his dropbacks. Some people like to say that Justin Pugh was the reason why, Tyrod Taylor looked a lot better. But he had a 19 PFF grade this past week. You saw Chase Young abusing him. He had 2 sacks on Justin Pugh this past week, and Jones has been pressured on 46% of his dropbacks, right? Tyrod Taylor pressured on 48% of his dropbacks. These are 2 different numbers from PFF and from Pro Football Reference. So do the math, man. Do the math. That's really what it is. He's been sacked on 6% of his dropbacks. He's pressured on 48% of those dropbacks. I had one dude come into the post and he was like, bro, that's just too many numbers for me to compute right now. Can you really break that down? They're both being pressured on about half of their dropbacks. But Tyrod Taylor is just so happening to only be sacked on 6% of the dropbacks. Daniel Jones being sacked on more than double, 14% of the dropbacks. So it's just math. That was entering this game against the Washington Commanders, and it leveled out a little bit more. I think Tyrod boosted up to 8%, being sacked on 8% of his dropbacks now after the Commanders game.
Big shout out to professionally certified hater. I always love that.
Great
With
name.
a $2 super chat.
And then the
says,
stamp of approval that I'm a hater. Oof, right on the profile picture. I love that.
You are a notarized hater. You have been notarized. You took it to the notary. You got it notarized.
Love that.
Send Allen and Payne to Salah, wasting primes right now. I mean, that would be great for the New York Giants. But listen, you can't send both of them away.
You're talking about the Jets. The Jets.
Can't send both of them away, obviously. And B, I am a firm believer of I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to stand on it. I'm going to die on it. Not moving any of these major pieces defensively unless there's an expiring contract, because I think that these players, this unit deserves an opportunity with a fresh start of a new coaching staff. That's my belief.
We're going to look back at this plan in about 2 to 3 years and be like, yeah, they messed up because they didn't go get the quarterback. You know, and I do think that Sam Howell's a guy you can develop, and he can go out there and win you some games. There are a lot of quarterbacks out there that can go out there and win you some games. But I think when we look back at it, I kind of got to agree with professionally certified hater here. We're going to say they wasted their primes. You know, they signed both of them. They franchise tag. I think that was Payne this past year, and then they paid them. So it's going to be tough if y'all can't, be a team that is pushing your way to the Super Bowl or pushing your way to at least a playoff run. Who was the one? That was Jonathan Allen that was in the press conference at the end of the game and that was cursing and all that. You see how that sounds like a fan, bro.
He's like he's had one of those outbursts every year for the last years.
I'll never remember one like that where he was pretty much saying, "I'm sick of this. I'm effing sick of this. This the same shit every damn year." That sounds like how fans talk, not players.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. Big shout out to our guy to lift our spirits, or my spirits, as authentic spirits are high. Big shout out to Tuto with the phone on 99 says super chat says massive salutes and respects to Awthentik, the Gold Nuggets master, and Beards, the roadmaps genius, and all diehard Giants fans in America. And we say giggle about it.
I like that. Giggle
Fist
about
bump, Italy.
Shout out Tudo in the building, man. Good to see you, Tudo. Hope all is well, man.
Big shout out to our guy, James Hollister, with the $5 super chat. Says, I feel what you guys are saying, but I think because of Mahomes, Jackson, and Josh, everyone thinks every quarterback has to be that great. Let them develop. They have to be that great because you need a great quarterback. That's true. I just think that the leash of development has drastically dropped over the course of the last 5 to 7 years, especially in the last 5. I think now you're getting 1 year, 2 tops.
It depends where you at, right?
Yeah.
And how you play. Now, a lot of this boils down to timing, and that's why I brought up the CBA, right? Because now these quarterbacks, they come into the league, the best time to take advantage of them when they're not taking up 13% of the salary cap or 15, 16, 17% of the salary cap is when they're rookies. You can use the Philadelphia Eagles as a great example, okay? They have time to be able to draft a guy like Jalen Hurts, not be pressured into starting him right away because they already drafted a guy right before him that was playing pretty well, right? You sign that guy to a fairly, wealthy contract there, I'll say, for Carson Wentz. Pretty good chunk of change, right? But you have another quarterback on the roster that you're assessing while you're still trying to win with the first quarterback. Getting that first quarterback is so important. It's a timing thing. If your roster is ready to win, you need to make sure that you get that quarterback. I am more for going out there and doing what a Sean McVay did. Felt that the Rams roster was ready to make a Super Bowl run. The quarterback was the thing that was holding them back. They were getting 9, 10, let me not even say 9 because it wasn't 9. It was 10, 11, 12 wins a season with Jared Goff at the helm and got to a Super Bowl with them and couldn't get over the hump. You go out there and you get the guy who you think can get you over the hump for those type of teams. Now, for the teams that need to be in a rebuild, you have to, fans don't want to hear this, but you have to commit to that. You have to commit that we are in a rebuild. Let's go out here, get ourselves either a bridge quarterback and draft our quarterback or bring in a cheap option. It's why I like what the Colts are doing. When you look at the Colts, do you think that they're in a similar situation as the Washington Commanders, better or worse?
They're in a similar situation, but if I had to lean one way, I'd say they might be in a better situation.
Right, and why is that? They went out there, they brought a bridge quarterback in. Gardner Minshew's costing them $3.5 million a year right now, and they draft Anthony Richardson with a top 10 pick. He's going to make $20 million over the next 4 seasons. So you have 2 quarterbacks for the price of less than Daniel Jones. That's how you got to commit. And they're still finding ways to win games like that. That's the difference. With the CBA deal implemented, you have got to take advantage of the rookie quarterback contract. Daniel Jones is an anomaly. I'll keep it real with you. 5th year, this dude has not really put any pen to paper as far as the resume outside of last year with Brian Dable, and they're still like, we still need to build around him. I still hear fans saying that next year, go draft Marvin Harrison Jr. if you get a top 5 pick, and I'm just like, that's what y'all really want to do. I just don't get it.
The more we talk about it, and we brought this, you touched on it briefly earlier, they really should have just franchise tagged him.
Yeah, they should have. But Saquon Barkley messed that up. They tried to get the deal for Saquon Barkley done at the bye week in 2022. Saquon's like, no, I'm not having it. So then that deal has to go all the way down to the wire. They didn't want to pay Daniel Jones $40 million. I don't think Joe Shane and Brian Dable did. I don't think so. Yeah. You know, maybe John Mara did, but I don't think that Joe Shane really wanted to, but he was forced to do it. And that's why that contract has a 2-year out on it. And to give some positive about Daniel Jones, too, is nobody thought that he would come into this year and the play would struggle like this. This kid was coming off of a big playoff performance against the Minnesota Vikings, struggled to put together a good performance against the Philadelphia Eagles, and he had a good year. 15 touchdowns, 7 on the ground, put up some good numbers, took care of the ball, lowest interception rate in the whole entire NFL, top 10 QBR. Dude was knocking on the door of being good, but they thought that the potential was going to be the reason why they could pay him.
Big shout out to our guy, Zach G, with the $1.99 super chat. Says the Giants are a game and a half back from the 7th seed, and the Washington Commanders are a game back from the 7th seed. Shout out to Zach G.
I like it.
We're in the mix.
That's why I think you and Commanders fans shouldn't be so down.
The
football is in front of you, right? Like, even when the New York Giants were getting blown out, it doesn't feel good to lose to the Dallas Cowboys 40-0, right? It doesn't feel good to lose to the San Francisco 49ers the way we did, or the Seattle Seahawks to get blown out like that late in that game, your quarterback turning the ball over twice. It doesn't feel good. But at the end of the day, those were teams I thought could beat us. To be sitting here at 2-5 right now, I'm all good with it. I'm not giving up on our season by any means yet. Hopefully our quarterback can get healthy, and when he does get back healthy, because there is no quarterback controversy if Daniel Jones is healthy. I don't care what anybody says. You're not going to pay a guy $160 million and be like, yeah, bro, just sit on the bench. This is not Kenny Galladay. This is not $18 million that was not Joe Shane's money or Joe Shane's doing. This is a contract that Joe Shane put the pen to paper with this kid on. You cannot bench him. So at the end of the day, you want to see Tyrod Taylor go out here, play some good football, and if Daniel Jones can get back and be healthy, which I doubt that's going to happen against the New York Jets this week, whenever he does get healthy, he can come out here and maybe learn something from being on the sidelines for a couple of weeks and maybe get back to playing some winning football.
And if there's one thing that if you haven't realized by now about the beard, okay, we're in it until we're mathematically out. I've always stood by that, and that's one of the main reasons too why I've never been a guy who's like, I do not know how you could be a fan of a team and sit there and be like, I need you to lose. Like,
yeah, that's wild.
I can't do it. So I'm in it till we're not in it, man. So shout out to Zach G for shining some light on how close the Washington Commanders and New York Giants are.
And a lot of people don't understand this either. Like, if you want the quarterback and he's in the draft, go get the quarterback. The Buffalo Bills went to the playoffs in 2017. They drafted Josh Allen the following year with the 7th pick. They didn't have the 7th pick. They traded and made their way up, climbed the ladder, used 3 picks to go get the quarterback that they wanted. So if you got to do it, go do what you got to do.
Absolutely. And speaking of quarterbacks, our good friend Patrick Mahomey with the $2 super chat says,
Salute.
Nah, I'm just messing around. Keep up the streams, guys. Appreciate you, Patrick.
That's a Patrick Mahomes-like statement too right there, right? Real nice guy, man. Salute to Patrick Mahomey, man. We appreciate you supporting the channel, fam.
And big shout out to Mike G with the $10 super chat. Says, saw you Beard on New York Revival and Authentic. Saw you on Cop Pizzle podcast the other day. Keep up the good work, guys. Thank you very much, Mike. We are only as good as the lovely people, all 88 of you guys who are watching us right now. So big shout out to each and every one of you all.
Yeah, man. Big salute to Mike. I'm upset with Cop Pizzle that stream is not still up because there was a lot of raw ball talk. It was definitely a good conversation and whatnot, some good points brought up. I wanted to go back and rewatch it myself, and I woke up, was up till about 3:30 in the morning, something like that, 4 in the morning and whatnot, and I woke up to a bunch of DMs, and then I went to go check the stream. The evidence was ran through the paper shredder. I was just like, damn, Kyle Pizzle. So I hit up Kyle Pizzle. He said that the stream got flagged or something like that, so we'll see. I told him I don't believe you. You need more people, but we'll see how that goes. Maybe I can go back. Kyle Pizzle did say he wanted to chop it up again with me, maybe during a game. One time soon. So we'll try to line that up. But shout out to Mike G for supporting the channel with the $10 super chat, man.
Also, I see Joe Deals in the super chat. In the chat. Big shout out to Joe Deals. He hooked me up with the Stewart Lumber vintage snapback hat. So
my new crib is going to be right off Stewart Lane. It's kind of interesting. I'm trying to steal that sign. Maybe get that to you. I was like, that's kind of wild. Yeah, man, but this game, man, what do you think about the quarterback controversy with the whole Tyrod Taylor thing and Daniel Jones? Do you I saw Rex Ryan, who actually gave Tyrod Taylor his first, chance to start in the NFL. And he talked about some characteristics of Tyrod Taylor, of why he's the kind of guy that you can go to and trust to be a starter, takes care of the ball, the way that he maneuvers the pocket. He's not going to make the big mistakes. He is going to take the shots downfield. And we're seeing that with him. In this game, he linked up with Jalen Hyatt. He's not afraid to take that shot down the field. What do you think if he continues to play good ball, let's say for another 2 weeks, do you think that there's a possibility that there could be a quarterback controversy, even with the way Daniel Jones has been paid healthy so far through this year?
I think no matter what, there's a quarterback. There already is a quarterback controversy within the fan base. I don't necessarily know in the building because we're not in the building, right? But it has to be, on the minds of the coaching staff. But I think I agree with you where, if Daniel Jones is healthy, he gets the starting job back. But I do think that you have to look at it realistically that there might now be a leash that was never there before. Just because of the mere fact of
this, like one of them leashes where the farther the dog runs, the longer the leash gets until you hit that little clank, that little lock on them. That's one of them joints right there.
Yeah, I think that there is now a leash that wasn't there before.
Did you get a chance to see how Brian Dable responded to it in the press conference?
I saw that. Yeah, it was.
What'd you think about that?
It was better than anything Ron Rivera would have said.
I thought he left it a little bit open. I think he left the door open.
I think he left it open, but I think he was also very I think it was a politically correct answer for sure. Like, didn't weigh one way or another, but it made you.
I don't think it was politically correct.
It made you think.
I think the politically correct way would have been Daniel
Jones is our starting quarterback.
Tyrod Taylor's been playing great in relief. That's the politically correct answer. For
maybe Daniel Jones just isn't going to come back and play for a longer time period than we thought.
I did want to get the report of what he said because I tweeted it out earlier. But to paraphrase, what he pretty much said is like he's healthy, he feels good, he's feeling better. He was on what's her name, Kay Adams show today and whatnot. He looked in good spirits and whatnot, and he said he's feeling better. He can do all the throwing, all the running.
Yeah.
He can do everything it takes to be a quarterback, except he's not cleared for contact right now.
So he's not cleared, because that's when I responded to you on the tweet, because I was curious if by him saying that, was he insinuating that he's not cleared? Is that like the official word that he has not been cleared for contact?
Not even in the quote, he says that he has not been cleared for contact.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what it reminds me a lot of the Chase Young situation in the preseason going into the first 2 weeks, because of that exact sort of situation where it's like he could do everything, right? And he's on the field, he's doing, non-contract team stuff, he's doing individual drills, he's doing everything, but he's not cleared for contact. And that lasted.
Now Daniel's not taking snaps on the field though with the team.
He's working on the side. He's working on the side.
He's working on the side.
Yeah.
His exact quote was, "I'm feeling better. I'm able to do everything I need to do from a running, throwing, and lifting standpoint. It's mostly a contact thing, and proving I can handle that." So I guess they're running him through drills that test the way that he can take the contact. He said, "I'm feeling good and trying to take a step every day." To me, that sounds like a guy that's not going to play anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree.
When you say that, I'm feeling good and trying to take a step every day. That doesn't sound like somebody who's just ready to get over the hump. That sounds like somebody who's got a couple of steps before they get to where they need to be. So I am a little bit worried about that, but at the same time, I'm not worried because I'm confident in Tyrod Taylor, and I think that Tyrod just brings a certain swag to this offense. Jalen Hyatt even was on his Instagram stories, posted a picture of Tyrod Taylor, and it had a quote on there that said, "Real deal." So I know Jalen Hyatt is extremely happy to have a guy like Tyrod Taylor at least throwing him the ball deep. Jalen Hyatt had his most targets of the season with 5 targets in this game against the Commanders.
Big shout out to Wolves for the $1.99 super chat. Says, yo, Awthentik, hit the thug shaker.
Hit the thug shaker. What? Shout out Wolves, man. It's been a minute. I ain't seen Wolves on the stream in a grip, man. I hope all is well, fam.
Big shout out to Lax044 with a $4.99 super chat. Says, I just wish for one game the Giants could play a complete 4 quarters of good football. Well, there's not more a Washington and New York Giants,
I think that's a football thing. That's a football thing.
Yeah.
Like, outside of like the Miami Dolphins versus the Denver Broncos, right? There's not a lot of teams that go out there and play 4 complete quarters of football. The Philadelphia Eagles, have they done it this year? I don't think so.
No.
Right.
Absolutely not. They were scoreless in the second half against the Jets.
Yeah. And that was in a loss, but like even when I look at the game against like the Minnesota Vikings, defensively you're leaving a lot out there. Against the Miami Dolphins, you got Jalen Hurts throwing an interception there, and the game kind of being in a little bit of limbo there for a little bit. So to be a good team, you have to be able to get through playing 4 quarters of not good football and be able to win games. I think that's what makes a team a good team. When I saw the Giants struggling against Washington Commanders on Sunday, I'm just like, man, this feels like one of them Joe Judge type of games where like if you don't know how to win, you're gonna lose this game. I think if it was against any other opponent outside of Washington on Sunday, I think that, you might lose that game. You get a 14-point lead against like the Detroit Lions and you start bojangling like that a little bit and start playing around, you lose those kind of games. You can't make those repetitive mistakes. 2 fumbles in the second half, the muff punt, the Saquon Barkley fumble. You can't make those mistakes and come out of football games victorious against good teams. It's not going to happen.
Big shout out to J Tech for the $5 super chat. Says, when healthy at cornerback, do we go with Banks, Adoree, and Hawkin or Flott? I'm assuming that's
that's Flott, Cordell Flott. So I like Flott right now in the slot. He's playing good football in the slot. Like, love what he's doing. A lot of people were saying that in practice he don't be showing up, but in the games he's been showing up as of late. So I like Flott in the slot. I think Trey Hawkins is a guy that you can use as a rotational piece. It was Nick McLeod when one of the corners was getting banged up in this game against the Commanders. I'd rather that be Trey Hawkins and give me Adoree Jackson out there on the boundaries with Deonte Banks. Deonte Banks, I told people, man, I was like, Deonte Banks going to hit the ground running. He's a guy, he can come into this system day one and be a kind of a shutdown type of corner. Terry McLaurin was eating a little bit, but Deonte Banks definitely out here. I think that's our best cornerback on this roster right now.
Big shout out to Crypto Moves with a $4.20 super chat. Says, Cop Pizzle grinds an axe like a blacksmith. One time in the building.
Okay, I love how you say one time in the building because that's my thing. I'll be saying that a bunch, man. Shout out to Crypto Moves, one time in the building. Now, that grinds an axe, right? What does that saying mean again? That's one of y'all kind of sayings.
Well, listen, this is not, you're talking to the wrong one of the y'alls to decipher that. I think you're thinking of grind my gears.
That's one you be saying a lot. But I've heard this saying before, but I'm not familiar with the pun for this
it either.
Let me see. We got the internet right in front of us, right here. No excuses. They are doing something for selfish reasons. If someone has an axe to grind, they are doing something for selfish reasons. I wish Kyle Pizzle was here for this, right? I'll leave it at this,
he's
right?
Here. I know he's here.
You think he's in the building somewhere lingering? I don't think so. Because when I talked to Kyle Pizzle yesterday, he's like, how come you don't say this stuff in public? When I was talking about Brian Dable not having a really good play design for the 4th and 1 against the Buffalo Bills. I was like, bro, you're just not watching Awthentik and The Beard, 4 days a week, brother. But I do agree with you on this a little bit. Like, I agree with you on this a lot. Like, Pizzle has, like, it's not – I don't like when people say you have a narrative, right? Like, I've been having people attack me, like, this week in particular on social media. Like, why are you trying to spread this narrative? Because I'm sharing a lot of, like, Tyrod Taylor stuff, right? I'm a big fan of Tyrod Taylor, man. Like, I see him in that uniform, the black visor, got the J's on his feet. I'm like, yo, this quarterback is swagging right now, okay? I like Tyrod Taylor. So that he's playing well, I want to share, the success of Tyrod Taylor. I'm rooting for Tyrod Taylor before he got his start. When he went against the Buffalo Bills and he posted the Jay-Z quote, faced with a measurable odds, still I made straight bets. Like, I love that. I'm of the culture of hip-hop, and so is Tyrod, and I like that, right? So people have been telling me narrative, right? You're trying to spread a narrative. And what I say to that is like, look, what narrative are you talking about? Like, one dude even said that, why don't you try to put things of positivity out there on social media that will bond the team and not take the team and make them, pin them against each other?
Literally what you're doing right now is bonding the team by supporting the guy who's playing quarterback.
To an extent, but he's talking about like, you're not supporting Daniel Jones the same way you're supporting Tyrod Taylor.
Daniel
I get
Jones
it. I get it,
not
right?
Playing right now.
He's not playing good. But this is the point to make right here, right? Like, if my football team is affected by what I say on Awthentik and The Beard, there's a bigger problem than what I'm saying on Awthentik and The Beard. Okay? I
will
cannot
double down
affect
on
what's going on in that locker room. Now, to speak to Kyle Pizzle grinding and acts, right? Kyle Pizzle wants things to go the way that he kind of envisions them, and I think that he's so set in stone on Daniel Jones, right? Being this quarterback that he wants to see elevate to greatness, he doesn't want to come off that mountain. He wants to stay on that mountain and act like, the quarterback is still playing well, or, these are the same kind of fans that will say, like, Daniel Jones would have won that game against the Washington Commanders too, which might be the case. I'm not going to sit here and rule that out, but I'm also not going to come up here and speak definitively like Jordan Renan did, who's a beat reporter for the New York Giants. You can't be out here saying Daniel Jones would have won that game as a beat reporter. Why don't you guys just post some things that support the quarterback that's out there right now? You don't see people talking about Anthony Richardson right now with the Colts being like, oh, man, if they had Anthony Richardson, like, dude, support the quarterback that's out there on the field. I don't come over here on this channel and root for Daniel Jones to lose games for the New York Giants.
Yeah.
Y'all know that. The people who tune into this show every week, they know that. So I think that people got to, it's not an agenda, but it's just being real stubborn, and they grinding that axe. I like that. Now I know what that saying means. I'm going to tell Pizzle, bro, you grinding the axe. I'm going to start saying that.
Big shout out to Crypto Moves. We appreciate you, brother.
Salute.
Yeah, congratulations, man. Great victory.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So the roadmap, do we want to at least dibble and dabble on the roadmap at all? Did y'all hit anything on the roadmap? Let's talk about what y'all hit.
Okay, we hit halves. We hit halves points.
What does that even mean? What you just said? Halves points? What is halves points?
So, for example, I said that
just speak a whole nother language to me just now.
So, for example, I said we have to go 100% in the red zone and hold the New York Giants over in the red zone, right? So a half point would be if I hit one of those two. So we did that.
What is your saying about hand grenades?
Almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
So now you're telling me, but almost counts on the roadmap?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. We hit one thing. Win the turnover battle.
Y'all won the turnover battle 2 to 1.
2-1. I will tell you though that a lot of the things that were on the roadmap were a significant reason as to why we didn't win. That's for damn sure.
Marjorie said, what was that mumble jumble from the Beard? I don't know what the hell he said, Marjorie. He said something about a halves.
So I explained it. Like, for example, okay, I said we have to convert over 50% of third downs and hold the New York Giants under 50%. We did not get to 50% because we were 1 of 15. But we did hold the Giants under 50%. You guys were 5 for 16. So that was a half point.
That's not a half a point.
Okay. So no.
Remember we went over this last year with the Dallas Cowboys.
I know, but
yeah.
I tried to sneak it in.
Points.
I tried to sneak it in, and it didn't work. Okay, so
like
we hit one thing on the roadmap. Complete
Turnovers.
one thing. Turnover battle. Rushing yards, no. We had 76. I wanted 120. You guys just barely got over 100 rushing yards at 106.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Allow no more than 13 points. 14 points.
1 over. Beautiful thing.
The red zone, I said we needed to go 100%. We were 1 for 3. Hold you guys over. You were 1 for 2. Won the turnover battle and then the third down conversion. So, yeah, a lot of what I talked about had significant impact in the outcome of that game. Just didn't go our way, obviously.
I like it. I'm going to need you to start separating the roadmap stuff. No more two and
no
one
more two.
roadmaps.
No more two more.
Let's go 1 and 1.
One and one.
It'll help you out. You might be able to hit a couple more destinations. Knicks Nation here, man. If the Giants get Drake May or Caleb Williams, I'm telling y'all they aren't as far as you think. And look, I think he's not specifically directing that at us per se, right? Because look, I don't think this New York Giants team is that far off. I'll keep it real with you. Offensive side of the ball is where they need help, and I think quarterback is one of them. I won't say quarterback is the number one thing they need to fix, but we know what changing the quarterback can do to an offense. You get that quarterback in here who's decisive, can make those big plays, maybe make some plays with his legs like a Caleb Williams, or maybe have the the arm talent, top tier type of arm talent that we've seen from Drake May. You bring that in while you're trying to rebuild this offensive line, reset the rookie quarterback contract clock at the same time, maybe go out there and get you a true wide receiver one, an alpha wide receiver one, and pair that. I think the New York Giants are a lot closer than we think. It's why, when I did the stream with Bleacher Report last week, they were kind of trying to like lean me into saying, not saying, but they were trying to lean me into talk more about like how the Giants could like off some of these assets and, get some draft picks in return. And I was just like, look, I'd love to talk about that, but I don't think that there are a lot of players that the New York Giants really should off. Like, I think Leonard Williams, if you can't get the contract right, he's a guy. But like when you look at this defense and the youth around this defense, you're going to need to go out there and draft another edge rusher as well because, what's my man? I don't know why. Azeez Ojulari can't stay healthy. Right? Yeah. But you got Kayvon Thibodeau. You got Dexter Lawrence locked up, right? Now you got Bobby O, who's not that old. He's like mid to late 20s and whatnot. You got Deontay Banks, Trey Hawkins. Adoree Jackson's like 28. If you wanted to keep him around, you could. If you want to trade him, that's okay with me. Xavier McKinney's a guy, still youthful, but the contract's going to be an issue. Jason Pinnock. You have great young pieces on this defense, and Micah McFadden there to pair with Bobby O. The defense is pretty set, man. Like you need edge rusher depth, and you just need maybe like some linebacker depth. And I think you could use a couple other guys in the secondary as well. But like when it comes to starters, the Giants have great building blocks. Offensively, you got Andrew Thomas. The Evan Neal thing, not quite going as well as we thought it would go. But then you got John Michael Schmitz, who he's a guy right now. It's all about just staying healthy. You can figure out a way to move some pieces around and get yourself a left guard and a right guard. I think the timing is a little bit weird with Saquon Barkley, but to me, $10 million, $12 million, $13 million a year for a running back, that's not going to kill your cap. You can keep Saquon around until you start to see him dip and fall off of a cliff. You got pieces there. This team is not that far off. If you get that quarterback that can go out there and really win you some games, like how Knicks Nation is talking about right here, you might be right in the mix. You might be right back where you was last year, one game away from the championship.
Okay, let me ask you a question. If you put Drake May or Caleb on the New York Giants with the current roster next year, and you put one of those two guys with the current roster on Washington next year, who do you think has the better setup talent around the quarterback to right
when you
immediately?
Put talent, it pigeonholes me into an answer.
Okay, so all right, how would you not talent?
If you just say better situation, it changes it. If you say talent around them, I'm excluding the coaches. If we're talking situation, I'm going New York all day long. Brian Daboll right now is a better coach than Eric Bieniemy is on offense. You don't even know who's going to be the head coach next year. You talking about bringing in another head coach? That means new philosophy. And by the way, Bill Belichick was listening to your comments on the last show talking about, I would never take Bill Belichick over here. He was like, all right, I'm going to just show you how I take care of quarterbacks. Defensive-minded coach. If you paired him with Eric Bieniemy, it might make sense. But the New York Giants, I think, philosophy, offensively, what you saw Brian Daboll do with Daniel Jones, I think is a better situation. You guys have the talent advantage, obviously, but the coaching staff and all those other things seem to be where, like, hey, y'all just can't get over the hump.
Okay, I can agree with that. I can agree. Oh, man. Glad this is over, this loss.
I was going to go for another 2 hours. Like, no, I'm playing with you. But Grandpapa Cap says, I still think we keep Azeez Ojulari for cheap now. He's good when he's available. If he's demanding some real money, let him walk. I 1,000% agree with you on that one. I saw that somebody said that they agreed with you in the chat, which made me pull this one up. Oh, Corey. Yeah, he brought that up. So, yeah, that's a good point. I like Azeez Ojulari. He could turn into a depth piece, which is kind of what I thought he was from jump. Health has been a problem for him when he's
flashed,
getting, the higher percentage of the snaps. The dude's a beast. I mean, pretty much getting a sack every game. That's his kind of forte as he's been a New York Giant. But every damn year this dude gets hurt. Every year. Love what I'm seeing out of Kayvon Thibodeau right now. Being a guy who can get after the get after the passer. You got to bring in another type of defensive edge rusher to pair with that. You need the bull rush. You need the strength out there as well. A guy who can run stop, step up, and make these plays in the running game as well. And we really don't have that right now. I also like the kid Jordan Riley. I think he could be a piece too.
Oh, shout out Max Castro. Awthentik is real.
Hey, man. Thank you, bro. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. I definitely appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that. Shout out Max Castro in the building. I like this one from Kevin the PRF too right here, man. He said, Awthentik, it's amazing how similar our rosters are, and you think one roster should be blown up and another stay. Says you should just add some pieces. For me, it's just like y'all defensive line is aging faster than ours. That's really the number one difference, I think, between.
That's why I didn't chime in with that sort of response, because you specifically said the youth, especially in the secondary and
Yes.
other aspects of your defense, is definitely younger than ours. It's because we're in an awkward stage, because we're not necessarily old, but we're definitely not young. So
Is Cam Curl at the point now where he's about
he's
to be
up for
entering a new
a contract at the end of the year.
And then I'd have to go, Kevin, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do myself the service to do this. I'm going to go look at that roster, see the ages all around the roster. Because when you look at wide receiver, Jahan Dotson's a good piece, but I look at Curtis Samuel and I look at Terry McLaurin as guys who are like, they're not going to fall off a cliff, obviously, but they're aging a little bit more. The New York Giants don't quite have that. You could compare that to the similarities of Darren Waller a little bit, too, because Darren Waller's a guy pushing 30 years old, but I think that he's going to still be a productive type of tight end for a couple of years to come. He's kind of in that Saquon Barkley case. I think you guys have the better roster right now, but I don't think that it's necessarily blow it up right now. The more of the point that I was making was go get the quarterback that'll let you know if you need to blow it up right now, because you guys got a roster where you guys should be competing more. Last year, I still feel this way till this day. Washington had the better roster last year and probably should have been the playoff team, but New York started way hotter. And when it came down and things started kind of getting closer to the playoffs, Washington kind of fell off a cliff there after they benched Taylor Heineke, after the San Francisco 49ers game where he didn't play well either. And it was the loss actually to the New York Giants. 2 straight losses. They were just like, hey, forget it. Let's go back to Carson Wentz. And then we saw how that went. It didn't work out. So I think you guys are underachieving in a major way when the New York Giants last year were overachieving in a major way.
I agree 1,000%.
Yeah, man. So solid show. I'm trying to enjoy this, as much as I can. This victory week for my New York Giants. It was amazing, man.
Rightfully so, man. You guys needed
victory.
it. It was a timely victory. It was as the sea was beginning to part for the New York Football Giants fan base. Lo and behold, here comes Washington to make things right for the Giants.
Yeah, and we needed a game like this, I talked about the schedule, man. You playing all those difficult teams, man, to start the year, man. And that's why I thought that, for us to get off on the right foot, beating Dallas week 1 was a must, because then you had this treacherous schedule coming up behind that, man, with San Francisco, Buffalo, Miami. It's hard to beat those teams, man. It's really hard to beat those teams. And now when we get to the back half of the schedule here, we have a couple of games here that are very winnable. I think 3 out of 4 are winnable. I'll round this show off with this. You got the Jets this week. You got the Raiders next week. Then you got Dallas. And then it's back to Washington here. We got 1 month before the New York Giants are going to travel down here to D.C. to play y'all. So get ready for that. And I think that those are 3 out of 4 games are winnable. You can go out there and beat the Raiders, beat the Jets, and beat the Commanders. And I did not pick us to sweep the Commanders at the beginning of the year. I also didn't pick us to beat the Jets at the beginning of the year. But with the Jets, dealing with the quarterback issues without having Aaron Rodgers, I think that increases our chances of getting a W there by a drastic measure.
So our next 4 games, not as easy. Eagles at home. We do play the Eagles tough. I think we've shown that.
That's this week coming up?
That's this week coming up.
Oh, that's an L.
Okay. So then we have the Patriots, the Seahawks.
That's an L.
And then the Giants.
That looks like 3 out of 4 games that y'all could lose, for real.
I mean, we could lose all 4 of them. Let's just be perfectly honest. But I think we, worst case scenario, we go 2-2 over the next 4.
Worst case scenario, dog.
Well, outside of losing them all.
Go get a little Windex, right? Spray it on a little napkin, right? Like this, and then take the glasses off one time. And
I mean, worst case scenario outside of losing all of them.
Worst case scenario.
Outside of losing all of them.
You don't think y'all can win 1, lose 3? Come on, bro. Worst case scenario?
Well, okay,
worst case scenario, I think we got 3 out of 4 winnable games. Worst case scenario, you lose them all.
Worst case, yes, okay. Worst case scenario, if we want to make the playoffs, we go 2-2. Does that make better sense? Wording?
No. That made it worse. That made it worse, man. Shout out my guy Alvaro Ryan in the building one time. He said, salute my guys. Everybody is live right now. MLB, NBA, too many choices. Let's go Giants. Salute, man. Yo, we appreciate you pulling by, man, and, stopping by with all these streams going on, man. We know how this can be, man. Tuesday's a busy day. And a lot of teams or a lot of streamers right now are moving on to next week's games already. People be trying to talk about the previews when me and the Beard are, just getting this recap done. I'm trying to enjoy it a little bit, make this show kind of a little bit extended, a little overtime.
I think that people enjoy that, actually. They want to,
especially when the Giants win, man.
Especially when the Giants win. But if they
lose. One time in the building, man. One time in the building. Any last words, man, before we get up out of here?
Nah, man. Shout out to everybody in the chat across all the platforms. Congratulations to all the Giants fans. Shout out to all the Cowboys fans who didn't show up today. I did see Texas Made. I did see Marcus, so shout out to you too. But yeah, we'll be back on Thursday, man. We got apparently an L in the front view mirror, according to
Awthentik. Yeah, I mean, I think Philly's going to be hunting for blood. They're going to be hunting for blood. They're like, man, we let these bums hang it close last game. Let's go out here and show them that the Commanders ain't in our class. Let me ask you one little quick question before we get up out of here. Not a lengthy answer on this one either.
Okay, I'm going to do
Is there a chance, Sam Howell is on pace right now to break the sack record. I looked at it the other day. It's like high 70s.
Oh, he's on pace to destroy the record.
He is. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. He's on pace to beat the record, right? Randall Cunningham was number 2 on that list. I think it was
Derek Carr is number 1.
Derek, is it David? David Carr.
David Carr, excuse me.
David Carr. Is there a situation where if you guys can remain around the 500 mark where you would get the keys to Jacoby Brissett?
No.
All right. We'll leave that there. I think you're wrong on that, but we'll leave that there. You see what Tyrod Taylor did for this New York Giants offense. Oh, my God. Big shout-out to Tyrod Taylor one time, man. That boy's balling out. Swaggy in that number 2. Looking like Surge back there. AEHS days, the Beard. Straight up. We in the building. We just listen to Beard. Salute, man. Shout out to TC915 in the building, man. Is that a bandana? You look like man. Yo, look, man. Let me tell you a little quick crazy story before we get out here. I'm glad I'm getting up out of this neighborhood, man. I'm gonna keep it real with you, right? This lady was walking her dog, little white, little fluffy white dog or whatnot, in Fort Totten Park. Dudes jumped out in the van on her, put the pistol to her, hit her with the pistol in her head, and stole her little dog, okay? She was on the news, and she talked about the dog. Little dog like what y'all got over there, a little Ace, right? A little white version of Ace. She was on the news saying like, yeah, they robbed me, took my dog. My dog's 14 years old. He's on meds. He needs a certain kind of food, all this stuff. Man, I was feeling all bad. I'm like, you know how I am with animals, man. I love animals, right? I'm like, man, I hope this lady find her dog. And today, my girl showed it to me on the news. Some dude found a dog running around in the park, called the police, and they got that lady her dog back. She about to move back to New York. She's from Queens, and the dude that found her dog was from Queens as well. Wow. I hope they was Giants fans because that'll make this week extra, extra sweet for them if they were New York Giants fans. So shout out to that lady for getting her dog back, man. It's a bunch of goons out here, man. Fort Totten Park going crazy. Broad daylight, stealing dogs off the leash. She said the dude pulled up on her. The second dude pulled up in a car, and she thought the dude was there to help her because he was like, hey, what's going on? She was like, this guy's robbing me. He was in on the robbery. He had on a mask as well. Dude gave the dog to him. They put him in the car and rolled out. So thank God she got the dog back, man. I hate to see people losing their animals like that, man. So that we'll end the show on a positive note with that. And y'all know how we end every one of these shows, man. Keep raising that bar, y'all. Keep living those dreams, man. Keep living those playoff dreams. Because the New York Giants universe flows in Technicolor and blue surround sound, okay? That's how we doing. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, my man Combat Jack one time. And, man, that's another one in the books, another W for the New York Giants against the Washington Commanders. We will see y'all on Thursday for the preview show. The Beard, we're going to open up that package this week. Shout out to Vintage Sports Flips, right? I'm saying that right? For sponsoring the gift that's going to be on Thursday. It's a mystery package. We don't even know what's in it, but it's something for a lucky New York Giants fan or Washington Commander fan, I believe. And if you're a Cowboys fan or an Eagles fan, we got something special for you too. So make sure you pull up, check out our trivia segment on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, yo, keep telling y'all homies, man. Keep telling y'all homies. We got something good over here, man. Awthentik and The Beard, the left side.
Strong side.
Y'all be good, man. Enjoy the rest of y'all evening. I know I'm going to do that. Be good. Peace.